Shalom and welcome to the second annual Construction 4.0 event by ConTech, this time in a hybrid mode. Thank you for joining us for this live broadcast from the Startup Nation Central venue in Tel Aviv. The 2021 Construction 4.0 conference brings together Israeli startups, international experts, industry leaders, government agencies, and multinational corporations, sharing a common goal to promote the construction industry through technology and innovation. Also with us today are ConTech partners, the Israel Builders Association, the Ministry of Economy and Industry, and the Ministry of Construction and Housing. We'll be starting the conference shortly, right after the welcome remarks and greetings from our distinguished guests. I'm honored to open this exciting event and introduce Mr. Raul Srugo, President of the Israel Builders Association. Mr. Srugo has been active in the Israel Builders Association for nearly 3 decades. Among his positions in the organization prior to becoming president was the chairman of the Entrepreneurship and Construction Division. He studied industrial engineering and management and holds a master's degree in business administration from the Rekanati School at Tel Aviv University.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, I'm proud and happy to open the Construction 4.0 Digital Conference, the second international conference of ConTech, another step into the future of construction technologies. These days, we are celebrating 4 years of activities for the construction tech community. We, the Israeli Contractor Association, are leading this innovation center with the Israeli government, Ministry of Construction and Housing, and Ministry of Economy. This is a unique and first of its kind venture that over the short time it has been operating has managed to create an impact and landmark of the global construction map, leading the future of the construction field in the coming years. We held the first international content conference on the eve of the outbreak of the global corona pandemic. It was an important milestone in Israel, becoming a world leader in the field of construction technologies. Israel has long since become a startup nation in the eye of the whole world. Here in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Rehovot, and Haifa, we are developing some of the tools that are changing and will change a wide variety of industries, implementing AI, data management, and other technologies. Now, it is the time for the construction industry to make a digital revolution, and we are proudly leading it. I am convinced that all of you, those who are here with us in Israel and those who have joined us from all over the world, will discover today a wide range of options for promoting and improving the process you conduct every day. I will end my remarks in wishing you all a successful and instructive conference. I look forward, like everyone else, to the end of this severe period and look forward to the day when we can host you here in Israel, the Global Construction Hub, face to face.
Thank you, Mr. Srugo. We surely hope to meet next year in Tel Aviv, face to face. Next, I would like to invite Aviad Friedman, the General Director of the Ministry of Construction and Housing.
המאה ה-21 היא המאה הדיגיטלית. תעשיות שלמות השתנו ללא הכר. השנה האחרונה, שנת הקורונה, הובילה לקפיצת מדרגה נוספת. כאשר אנחנו מתבוננים בתעשיות מסורתיות כמו תעשיית הביטוח, תעשיית הבנקאות, תעשיית הרכב, אנחנו רואים שבשנים האחרונות הם השתנו ללא הכר, ואנחנו רואים שמדינת ישראל היא מהמובילות בעולם בכל קפיצות המדרגה הזו. תעשיית הבנייה עוד לא עברה את הדיסטרפשן ההכרחי. במונחים רבים ובמקומות רבים אנחנו עדיין נראים כמו שהיינו נראים לפני 40 ו-50 שנה. אני מאוד שמח בפעילות הטכנולוגית שאנחנו עושים. אני מאוד שמח שהמשרד שותף לזה, ובמהלך הקדנציה הקרובה המשרד יעמיק וירחיב את שותפתו, את השתתפותו בכל הנושאים הטכנולוגיים והדיגיטליים. אני מברך את באי הוועידה ואשמח לקבל כל מידע וכל רעיון חדש כיצד ניתן לבנות בצורה יעילה יותר, מהירה יותר, זולה ובטוחה יותר.
Thank you, Aviad. And now, hello and shalom from Tel Aviv. Welcome to ConTech's second annual Construction 4.0 conference, broadcasted from Tel Aviv, the new capital of ConTech and PropTech, this time in a hybrid mode. My name is Aviv Frenkel, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to our conference, which is broadcasted live from the Startup Nation Central Studios in Tel Aviv to hundreds of attendees from more than 20 countries. Our second international event brings together world leaders in the construction arena, construction tech and prop tech entrepreneurs, contractors, global corporations, government officials, and investors. This year, due to the rapidly changing circumstances of the COVID-19, we have chosen to hold a hybrid event, which takes place online with a live watch party here in Tel Aviv. This year's conference will focus on four main pillars that change the construction industry: robotics, sustainability, productivity, and investments in construction technologies. We will discuss today's trends, challenges, and innovations with large contractors, government officials, and industry experts. We will hear keynote speakers and startup pitches, and we'll listen to investors and startup panels. 4 years ago, ConTech set the goal of making Israel a startup nation, a central player in the global construction tech arena to impact workers' safety, improve productivity, and increase sustainability. Since then, our ecosystem has grown from a few startups to more than 300 startups, a 800% growth in just 4 years. Amazing. Even during the global COVID-19 pandemic, investments and interest in our startups continue to increase, and our ecosystem continue to grow. I want to thank our partners, the Association of Israeli Builders, the Fund for the Promotion and Development of the Construction Industry in Israel, the Israeli Ministry of Economy and Industry, and the Israeli Ministry of Construction and Housing. Thank you for being such supportive partners, helping ConTech achieve its vision and putting Israeli construction tech on the global map. I also want to thank Startup Nation Central for being a close partner along the way and in our conferences, and our amazing startups will present later on. So who do we have here today with us? The biggest corporations and VCs: Gensler, Trimble, Thornton Tomasetti, Lafarge Holcim, Epigames, Cemex Ventures, ESRI, McKinsey & Company, Bouygues Construction, Association for Advancing Automation, Fundamental, Plug and Play, Procore, Build Up Ventures, Lafarge Holcim Startup Maker, and Goldbeck. Thank you for joining us today. And now, please welcome our first speaker, Zachi Flatto, the CEO of ConTech. Construction has been in Zachi's blood before being born, growing up in an engineering family, and on top of that, he has 20 plus years of experience in the industry. His hands-on experience ranges from being a licensed civil engineer to overseeing construction software sales to being ahead of his time in developing parking algorithms. Over the past several years, he has been making Tel Aviv the epicenter of the construction technology with ConTech. In his lecture, Zachi will address the question why you should build a ConTech startup now.
Does anyone here think of becoming an entrepreneur? Let me pitch you during the next 15 minutes why your next startup should be a construction tech startup. Hi, I'm Zachi Flatto, the CEO of ConTech, which is a construction innovation center and incubator based here in Tel Aviv. How big is this market? Well, it is huge. Construction is responsible for 10% of the world's GDP, a 13 trillion market, and it keeps on growing. The most interesting figure here is this. As the world's population is growing, until 2060, 13,000 new buildings per day are required to match this growth. The supply is not going to match the demand. How about the pains of our industry? It might sound trivial, but let me recap 6 main pains of our industry. The first one, we have a dramatic skilled workforce shortage. Between 25 to 40% of the construction workforce in the Western world today will be retired by 2030. Now looking at the future, that is even worse. Only 3% of young adults are interested in the construction trades. How does the day life in the industry looks like? Would you believe that in the construction materials supply chain, the fax, yes, the fax, is still a common tool to send orders? And this is happening in the Western world. 4 hours spent in a day by architects on searching for product information. 3 to 5 hours on manual and repetitive communication daily. Around 20% of the needed materials is still being bought by workers at Home Depot. As ridiculous as it may sound, this is the reality of the construction industry. I can speak a couple of hours about the low productivity, communication, budget, safety, and schedule and workforce issues. But I think you already got the point here. So what's the solution for these pains? You probably know the answer. Adopting technology will make a significant change. Now, speaking about technology, what are the latest trends here? Digitalization will surely lead in 2021. The industry is much more mature today. Digitizing processes consists of innovations that digitize traditional processes. This enables the process to analyze more data, be accessible online and real time, while making them more efficient and user-friendly. For today, I have chosen 3 examples of digitalization. The first one, remote work. In 2020, suddenly it was not required to be physically present on job site. The construction world shifted to remote work. For construction professionals themselves, remote management tools will likely be a major asset in 2021 and the future. A significant part of remote work will be digital collaboration. Digital collaboration tools has been around for many years. Finally, today, they are considered a foundational technology. This change was made for 2 reasons. First, people were not able to meet in person during the pandemic, and it simply left no other choice. Second, these tools have developed by growth and acquisitions into unified platform hubs designed to be the core tool to enable all other technologies to connect. The second example, digital twins. So you probably heard this term before, but what is it? Unlike traditional construction models, the digital twin replicates every detail of the original object, whether it's a high-rise or an infrastructure. This means that the digital twin can imitate the behaviors and processes involved in the construction all the way down to the individual materials and components, starting from the design process through the construction phase, and obviously to the management and maintenance phase, through the whole life cycle of the building or the infrastructure. After many years of nice-to-have attitude, today it is clear that the digital twin is essential, and hence digital twin adoption will likely increase. Global digital twin supported solution in just for smart cities will reach 3.77 billion by 2026. Data integration is the third example. You probably ask yourself, how many data sources are in a typical construction project? Well, in every single project we can map at least 10 to 15 data sources and different systems, 5 to 6 different applications, budgets, schedules, bill of quantities, job site logs, not to speak about the BIM CAD models, ERPs, and more. There are many ways of data transferring, and people are very innovative in the way they transfer data. Most of them are doing that manually in spreadsheets, emails, and some other ways. The main problem here is that a lot of data is lost, a lot of double work, and maybe the most important point here, there are no insights created and no combined analysis. Data integration might sound easy, but in order to create real value out of it, we need some good technology. Robotics and automation is the second trend. Labor shortage appears in most of the industry reports as one of the top concerns of our industry. Increasing construction efficiency by replicating repeatable tasks like bricklaying or rebar tying with robots rather than human labor. With the addition of AI, this sector is developing for more advanced tasks like fully automated excavation. Contrary to common fears where robotics is applied, they have multiplied human ability and allowed for increased productivity. A McKinsey analysis supports this and shows that higher productivity and autonomy would add another 1.6 trillion to construction global value. Robotics will likely begin assisting construction workers by augmenting small and repeatable tasks to alleviate some pressure. The third and last trend, sustainability. The entire economy is pushing towards greater environmental friendliness. Car manufacturers like General Motors pledging to eliminate gas-powered vehicles by 2035, something that would have been inconceivable not too long ago. Construction companies, material providers, and other industry players investing a lot of efforts to create a much more sustainable industry. However, the process is still young. This trend will continue in 2021, especially as governments offer specific incentives for environmentally conscious building projects. Now, looking on green buildings, they present one of the biggest global investment opportunities of the next decade, estimated by the IFC to be 24.7 trillion by 2030. The size of the opportunity is much bigger than the size of the pain, and it's simply massive. Now let's see how other domains looks like investment-wise. You can clearly see that 10 billion accumulated funding is the point of inflection. On average, it took a sector around 3 years to get from 5 billion to 10 billion funding. That is the way it happened in mobility, travel, logistics, and PropTech. In construction, we are very close to this point of inflection. A lot of funding is flooding into the industry during the last year, with some specialized groups of VCs and famous names such as Y Combinator. At the startup side, we can see unicorns with fat rounds of funding. And yes, they are also the ones that finish their funding. So now you're already convinced that funding is more than possible. We saw a beginning of a revolution at the last 5 years. We passed the first wave of construction tech startups and entrepreneurs facing the penetration and education of the industry for the need of technology. Companies try to implement technology with short-term needs for a specific project and no strategic targets. In a lot of the cases, these implementations did not meet the long-term needs of the companies. I believe that their failure was priceless to the construction tech industry. Here is a snapshot of the ecosystem in Israel done by ConTech. As you can see, the ecosystem covers the different stages of the life cycle in the construction and real estate industry. We can see usage of the most advanced technologies adopted into the industry needs. In Israel, we grew from 10 to 200 startups in just 4 years, and then COVID hit. When the pandemic hit, the impacts were immediate. From March to April of 2020 alone, construction employment declined by 975,000 jobs. That's about 13% of the USA construction workforce. New safety protocols were mandated, supply chains were interrupted, job sites were closed, and contracts were terminated to control expenses. Did COVID-19 disrupt the industry? In many ways it did. It demonstrated that technology is essential for the AEC industry as companies can increase their efficiency and resilience. How did it happen? We've discussed already digitalization. We saw this year more investments in digitizing processes and platforms. Finally, after many years, doing things digitally has become the new normal. COVID-19 acted as technology catalyst. One of the most dramatic aspects here, CO2 emissions. After years of talking about sustainability, external forces may now accelerate the process to act sustainable. With over a year of adaptability, the future looks bright. The construction industry is recovering. This is the Hoover Dam. It is a concrete arch gravity dam in the Black Canyon of the Colorado River, on the border between US states of Nevada and Arizona. It was constructed between 1931 and 1936 during the Great Depression. Infrastructure was always a good way to get out of recession. That's the way it worked in the Great Depression of the 30s, and that's the way it will work now. In the coming years, we will see a massive amount of capital invested in infrastructure. Just in the US, more than 2 trillion. This will create multiple opportunities for technology providers. Almost 100 years passed since the Hoover Dam was built, and today The Tilmer Bridge, located close to the Hoover Dam, was inspected by a state-of-the-art Israeli technology. We see more and more how Israel becomes a central hub for construction technologies that operate globally. Now, what makes the Israeli ConTech ecosystem so unique? It's the cross-vertical technology merged into the construction industry needs, the support of multinationals working with Israeli technologies, and the Israeli academia that supplies the talents and the seeds of the technology. We had some great success stories here in Israel in 2020. Some big rounds of funding, the first IPOs in Tel Aviv, and some impressive global awards. ConTech supports tens of startups and will continue in building this disruptive industry. Today is the best time to build your own ConTech startup. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachi. I think that this is very clear, and you made it clear, why now is the perfect time to build a construction tech startup. I'm convinced. Now I have the pleasure of inviting Eliran Elimelech, VP of Strategic Partnerships at Startup Nation Central. Eliran, please join us at the stage. Hi. Morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Hi, everyone. Thank you and good morning. It is a real honor to open and launch this wonderful activity here today at Startup Nation Central building in Tel Aviv. My name is Eliran. I'm the VP of Strategic Partnerships here at the organization. A few words about us, Startup Nation Central as an organization. We are a non-for-profit, 100% supported by philanthropy organization meant to enhance the Israeli innovation and make sure that the Israeli innovation will remain one of the main growth engine of the Israeli economy. How do we doing that? We're doing it by three main vehicles of activities. One of them is the Finder, online platform free of charge with information of more than 6,500 Israeli startups and thorough information about their team, technology, who they are, and what they are doing. This is a free of charge platform, and you are all extremely welcome to come and visit this platform. Second main vehicle of activities is working with global corporates, and this is action to demonstrate who we are and what we are doing it together with our great partners from ConTech. We are doing many of those kind of activities and hosting and waiting to host physically many of global corporates, top 4 companies that are building once the pandemic will be completely over. Third, and also very important pillar of activity is a research, a conductive research that we are doing in order to identify what are the challenges of the Israeli ecosystem and what we can do as an organization to make those challenges completely disappear. I really wish you a wonderful day and wish you have conductive discussions and fruitful outcomes. And now, without further ado, to our one and only Michal at the first floor. Michal, the floor is yours.
Hi, Eliran. Good day, and it's great to be here. I'm really happy to have everybody on board. I see that we have quite a few people on our digital platform. And here on our 4th floor, we have a watch party with people that have congregated from around the country to come and view together the Construction Tech 4.0 conference. And you can see them all here behind me. We have a lag of a few seconds, so they'll soon realize that they are on screen and live. We have government officials, we have startups, investors, all of them coming together to hear all about construction, the new trends, and all the very important things that we have to say and share with you today. And also, they might strike a few deals on the way. So I'll let you know later on what is happening up here. We have 2 very exciting days here on the 4th floor of Lilienblum 28, which is Startup Nation Central's headquarters. We have food and drinks, of course, a great view of the ocean, which I can see, but you cannot. But you must take my word on that. And wonderful buildings here. And we're right in the center of Tel Aviv, of the center of innovation in Israel. And if you're in Tel Aviv and you'd like to join us, please come along. As I said, Lilienblum 28, we'd love to see you here. We're here both today and tomorrow morning as well. And I've grabbed 2 people here just that you'd like to hear a little bit about what they're doing here. So we have Afik Yitzhak, the CEO of B4B. Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you.
Great to have you with us, Afik. Tell us, where are you coming from today?
I'm coming from Rosh Hain.
Where from?
Rosh Hain.
From Rosh Hain, which is about half an hour's drive from here, isn't it?
Fixed and all. About an hour, right in 10 in the morning.
And we also have Itzik.
Yeah, hello.
Good morning, Itzik. Where are you arriving from?
I come from Ganei Tikva, and yeah, it was about 1 hour with it. Yeah, to arrive.
Okay, great. So that's B4B with us today. And what have you guys come to do here at the ConTech conference?
We'd like to hear learning and meet people in the industry, in the construction tech.
Yeah, I come from the world of architecture and project management, and I came to basically listen and hear what's new and how can I cooperate it inside the process that we would like to do.
And that's exactly what we intend to give you here, some great content. So thank you guys for joining us, and I'm sure you'll have a really delightful day. And greetings from the fourth floor, and back to you, Aviv, in our broadcasting studio.
Thank you so much, Michal. Sounds like a great mix, food, drinks, great people, mingling, and the view of the Mediterranean.
Yes.
Amazing.
I think I got the better end of the stick here, Aviv, with the presenting. Sorry to tell you that.
that might be the case. See you later, Michal. Thank you so much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, this year's conference focuses on 4 main pillars: robotics, sustainability, productivity, and investment in construction technologies. We would now like to turn to the first topic, towards a robotic future. Henry Ford once said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. The traditional construction industry is still based on manual labor and analog building methods. The transformation that robotics brings to the world of construction promises a whole new perception and far-reaching change, but the road there is full of challenges. In the next session, leading experts will discuss robotics and automation in construction from various angles. Please welcome Jan-Hendrik Goldbeck, the General Manager of Goldbeck Group, one of Europe's leading construction and real estate companies. He studied industrial engineering and management, and in 2005 joined the family business as a site and project manager. He's driving the technological development of the family business. Jan-Hendrik will speak about customizing the visual, standardizing the invisible, Goldbeck's modular construction revolution.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Jan-Hendrik Goldbeck. Hi from Germany. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about construction 4.0, or at least how we do understand it. I would like to share a little bit of our history and how we try to step by step improve the way on how to go on about with construction and how to perhaps bring pretty much archaic construction history to a, say, brighter future based on efficiency, based on technology, and based by reinterpreting the value chain. So, but how did we do that? What's our pitch? It all started off in 1969 with my father, who actually kind of emancipated himself from his father, who was a smith at that time. And he founded a new company in order to do things better in construction. One big problem which currently exists in construction as of today is the fact that construction is regarded each time as a singular project, and in the worst case with very sequential interaction of our participants. First in design, where you have 10 to 20 different parts of engineering and architecture, and then of course, on the construction side, where you have 30, 40, 50 trades who have to be coordinated. The one thing about thinking in projects is recurring individuality, meaning that you over and over and over have to reinvent the wheel. Our idea in 1969, and thanks my father, since I wasn't born at that point of time, was, well, how could we use some of that magic ingredient of the automotive industry, which used industrialization to create more efficient parts. And so we started off producing building parts, steel parts at that point of time in an industrial environment. But the problem is if the smart people, the architects and engineers define a building and as a whole up until the very last screw, then you just always have to somehow make yourself heard in terms of that you have a good element that they should use. So you can exchange that, or you can basically be heard a little bit better if you offer more value. So that was in the 70s, the pitch from producing elements into producing whole systems, load-bearing systems, also at that point of time in steel. So then you enhance the value chain, but enhance the value that you propose, but you still don't solve the problem. And then I think the final disruption came in the 1980s, where we actually decided we don't want to offer only a load-bearing system like IKEA or Lego. We want to finish the full product. So by using a system, creating a superior turnkey design-build product. So we focused on different industrial real estate asset classes, meaning warehouses and production facilities, meaning car parks, offices, and by now it's also schools and affordable housing. So pretty basic real estate, but I think reducing yourself actually to this sort of very basic narrow product approach, it makes you strong, it makes you even better able to really define this sort of product. In order to be heard, you have to be close to the customer. And to do that, you have to be regional, because construction in the most cases is decided regionally. So this is the origin of our decentralized organization, which I will come back to you later on a little bit. So, but currently we have 70 locations throughout Europe in order to be close to the customer when he first starts thinking about a project. And you just can't be there and do your marketing pitch. You have to, of course, offer value. And this is why we transformed not only to be a construction company, which delivers turnkey construction with a production part, meaning we produce production components. It was only steel. Now it's steel, aluminum, windows, doors, it's concrete, it's facades, so it's hybrid elements. So it's a pretty broad range now. And you also have to be able to offer design quality and design skills. And this is why we're one of the largest design, engineering and architectural offices. But the point is, we just design what we want to build, and we just build what we actually did design. Of course, we can cooperate with architects in the first initial design phases, and we like that. We like that creativity approach. We like the capabilities of bringing things to the point with the customer. But then if it comes to execution design, we have to do it ourselves. So this was the journey in the 80s, in the 90s, after the fall of the German Wall. Everything kind of accelerated, and we dared actually to go abroad, or not abroad, but in different countries, and we decided to go with Central Europe in the beginning, and now it's basically the whole of Europe. I think key takeaway from this situation is that you actually are daring to do something which is not so common at that point of time. For a middle-sized company, family-owned, to really go into another market was for us a challenge, but actually it helped us to manage that construction crisis, which was happening in Germany from 1995 to 2004, so almost 10 years. And then basically the company development really kicked in exponentially by 2005. Why is that? First of all markets were good again. And then of course, we were really had this one significant feature of being quite stubborn. We believed in this idea of looking at a construction project as a product. And of course, it's tedious hard work, because you have to solve millions of small problems, and especially you have to convince the people that you don't do just boring stuff, but that you actually are able to meet the customer's ends architecturally and from a use perspective to a 100%. So you have to be flexible. That's, I think, this tightrope that you have to walk on. On the one hand side, individualizing what is visible to actually also be able to create buildings with a unique appeal and with a custom tailored user experience. And on the other hand side, actually to be able to standardize everything which is invisible, say the backbone. And of course, many details where in normal construction projects, architects and engineers try to solve them again and again, at the cost of having a lot of mistakes and reducing the quality. So, and then I think another major impact was in 2011, where we actually had the possibility to change our design software. And first of all, it was in the beginning just the idea. Now we use something called Revit. It's three-dimensional design. That was But I think after 1 or 2 years, I realized that this is really like the verge of something completely new, because it's not about three-dimensional planning. It's about causing in the end a sort of singularity of construction, where all information actually is in a symbiosis with each and every single bit of information. So basically you get every information involved, available, usable, and you are also able to forecast the whole building situation. I will get back to you pretty soon on that. So this is the idea how we, from a bootstrap startup, evolved to be a Europe-wide market leader in industrial and commercial construction. That's the business model, but don't forget there is another magic ingredient to that soup, that's company culture. Always ever so important, I would say even more important than the business model, and especially if you want to scale. And that's about trust and responsibility. So we trust the people that they, with their specific task, have more information and therefore are better able to actually solve a problem. But we expect responsibility. To take over responsibility, we expect that from ourselves, and we expect that from all our employees. And in the end, this ingredient turns out to be a company of entrepreneurs. And if you can do that, if you can really wake all the entrepreneurial spirit which is in each of us, then I think you just create a very strong momentum with a high level of aspiration, which is necessary to actually create an outstanding company. So let me just share some slides in regards to what we actually do and where we are right now. Should be there in any minute. So we actually are currently a company of 8,100 employees with 4 billion euro operating revenue. So I said 74 locations, and we have 10 production plants. I think most of it I already mentioned, so I will be a little bit faster in terms of what I actually I'm referring to in regard not to read all what I've referred to before. So we are European, meaning in almost all European countries. The light blue that you can see here is actually the situation where we have acquired a company called GSE, which is market leader in industrial real estate in France. So that was also a very interesting situation. I always say, be curious and be respectful. If you want to go for M&A stuff, respect the original culture of a company, especially if it's a foreign company. And by doing that, I think you have a fantastic momentum to broaden your horizon also culturally and of course business model wise. Then you have just a positive interference and just look at the best of both worlds, and both companies can profit from that. Just briefly, because I don't have too much time, is what are we doing in regards to our approach as a product? We're not only a product anymore, a three-dimensional product. It's a product service ecosystem, basically same thing as you have with a phone. So we start in discussing clients' needs, then we actually do the model as a foundation with a lot of front loading of information. We go better earlier than later into a very thorough description of what the building and the time frame on the construction site will be like, everything put into the model. And we produce the elements. Ideally, it's industrialized construction, so there are a lot of shortcuts from the different steps of design to actually the CNC information for the machines to actually produce parts. Then we have logistics and the turnkey final assembly, but we don't stop at the handover. But then we have 5 years of institutionalized customer contact, which we actually use. And so in that regard, we have the possibility to stay at the customer sites and really then to see where is his need to refurbish, to expand, to react on ESG demands. And with that situation, I think we are capable of then harvesting on what comes up in the use phase for the customer and then start new projects by doing that. The key is R&D organization. So we have a strong backbone of curiosity in our company, and it's innovation. We have very thorough trend and technology scouting. We have developed product strategies for each of our product. We develop production parts, we develop new machines, we develop technologies together with other companies. Then we have our products which are developed further each time we actually build a product. We have a continuous improvement process. And then this is actually in the direct relation to our building systems. And it's important, of course, that systems are producible and that we just keep this stubbornness in really trying to gain more information each time that you actually do a product. And then, as I said, the services, you stick to the customer. Very important in terms of our scouting process is a small office in the Silicon Valley. Where as everything happens, as you know, and so it's interesting in this chart, it's still Katera on there. I guess some people are still there. It's a pity, but because it was just really a great idea behind Katera, but we've had 50 years at Goldbeck to make mistakes which Katera didn't have. So I think everything was too fast at one time, and we just had taken it more slow, but very much in the same direction with this production and value chain integration as Katera is. So where will the future take us? Almost at the end and out of time now. So I think this is most likely common knowledge to all of you. We have those core elements of the future of construction. Basically, everything's based on a model. Then you have from this theoretical model as a target model. You have the basically the real-time model on the construction side. Then you have a real-time and target model comparison, which makes you able to actually use VR, AR, and especially, of course, robotics on the construction side. And then, of course, if you have a thorough interpretation of what the construction side is like and to compare current situation to target situation, you can base AI mechanisms on that. And in order to detect snags and construction progress and make use of robots, as I said. So this is something where I'm very sure of. We will have those real-time digital twins. This is really a frontline technology which causes us to be more sharp, more transparent, more precise, and in order to be more efficient, we are able, if we have this precision and transparency, we can parallelize processes which will make you better in the end. And cheaper also. I believe that, I mean, you can't imagine that at this current time, but I think in a while we will be able to be faster and cheaper again. Automation technologies are, of course, in all regards of production for us, a situation which will enable us. So almost last slide, as I said, we will become a product service ecosystem. It's basically like the phone, but it's all those smart technologies which really enable you to drive a building efficiently. Everybody knows that if you hit the pedal to the metal with a car and then you break down and do something again and again, this can cause a lot of energy. Same thing is with the building, and there are so many energy consumption fields where you have energy loss and not good use and thorough use of a building. So there's a lot of potential in that regard to really steer building in all regards of services and media use perfectly well, which will be enabled by this technology. So these are just glimpses, and I would be really happy to get in touch with you guys if you have good ideas, good technologies. We're always the company who's cherishing use cases. We have all those use cases of 600 projects per year in-house, and which, well, it's not only stupid German money, but we try to be smart German money and to try to interact with you and give you the basic framework for scaling your ideas if it suits to our idea of construction, of seeing construction as a product. I'm out of time. It was my pleasure to speak here, and I'd say thank you. Just getting back to you in a physical way. We're international, and definitely I'll be around in many countries now that it's most likely possible again. I'd like to meet some of you where technologies match with our approach, and have a good time. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Goldbeck. Your company is a great example of how a construction company can innovate and have an entrepreneurial spirit, yet do it at the right pace and the right way. Our next speaker is Julien Bourcerie, the head of open innovation at Bouygues Construction, who will talk about the challenge of implementing robotics in construction sites. As head of open innovation, Julien is responsible for the strategy and execution of new innovation methodologies, including startup cooperations, corporate venture, and design of specific acceleration programs. Previously, Julien started as roadworks engineer at Colas, and then founded the startup Existera, dedicated to the circular economy of groundworks.
Okay, hi, hello everyone. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Julien Bourcerie. I'm the head of open innovation and corporate venture at the Bouygues Construction. For those who might doesn't know, Bouygues Construction is a general contractor. We're active in 60 countries, and we have 12 billion of revenues in the world. Well, I will now introduce the topic I'm in charge of today, and I'm really pleased to share that with you because it's a great topic actually to defend its robotics in the construction. Well, you see my screen. I changed it recently, and I put that screenshot of the movie called WALL-E. WALL-E it's a robot. Its mission is to clean the planet after the human destroyed almost the planet. It's a great to start by that because, as you will see, robotics is an option to have a more sustainable construction in the coming years. To start talking about robotics, I'm talking about robotics, but many people in the world at the moment are sharing their story about robotics. You see startup in France, you see some documentaries on Netflix talking about the robotics in the construction, but also you have some challenges, innovation challenges about robotics, and some researchers that are sharing their research and the work they are actually doing on robotics in the construction. And that's probably the newsfeed that you have on your LinkedIn if you are really interested in the construction right now. So I said it at the beginning, it's a momentum for robotics in the construction. Some facts to defend that. The first one is the number of robot patents in the construction industry. It has almost tripled between 2010 to 2019. So it's a fact. There is a lot of interest at the level of the research coming from general contractor, from manufacturers of robots. Another figure to share this idea of the momentum, it's the venture capital yearly volume. So this is an index. And as you see on this graph, the construction tech venture capital has really outperformed the traditional venture capital activities. And it includes in this construction tech, the robotics. Robotics is a big part of this yearly volume of investments in startups. Another that you are probably comfortable with, as it has been shared a lot during the past years, it's the evolution of the productivity in the construction sector. So as you see in the red line, the construction has not really changed its productivity in comparison to the manufacturing. And we expect to have this similar adoption of robotics that we had in manufacturing, and that could be the answer to a better productivity in our industry. So I came with the macro fact, the macro figures. Now we're gonna go a bit deeper in the qualified situation I've encountered. At Bouygues Construction, I get the opportunity to be in front of many operationals that are sharing with me their intuition and their wishes for having a robot for any situation. It could be to remove some bins on the construction site, or to pour concrete between formworks. For every situation, I see that on the field, people are asking for robots. They are asking that for what? For safety. That's the first point. Most of the tasks that are handled in a construction site that's human labor. And of course, there is this matter of health and safety on the construction site, the repetitivity of the tasks, and the idea to get faster in their tasks. Now I've said that, I want you to really keep in mind, as I see it in this presentation, that for me, robotics in construction is still a market of innovators and early adopters. If you go on any construction site, you will probably see 1 or 2 robots, but you won't see like a factory made of many robots. So we are still in these first stages towards more robotics in construction. And if I do some history, in construction, robotics came first with the off-site industry. So it's a bit like a factory process. So it's really close to what you can encounter in the manufacturing. And it really began with the off-site construction. Then we see what we call the single task robots. They are really active on site, and they are here to do one task. One task could be the plumbing, could be painting, could be the concrete finishing on the slab, as you can see the last one on the screen. So that's some example of one single task robots. And it's new. You've probably seen that kind of engines, of course, and that machinery on construction site. They are now more and more autonomous. And we see with the manufacturers, like you can have Kubota, Hitachi, or Caterpillar, or whatever, they are starting to equip their new equipment, their new product with autonomous systems, but also on the retrofitting with solutions that could be applied to any heavy equipment that you can encounter on construction site. And this one is really new. Now, why am I here? That's because probably at Bouygues Construction, we get the chance to have this robotic department early on our civil works department. And for example, we had some success. It was about 10 years ago. It started. It's called like the Jet Snake. It's a snake. It's a good name to clean the cutting wheels in the tunnel boring machines. So it's really a heavy task for a worker to do. And we have this example. We also developed new other robots like the Robbie that has been designed for the drillings, repeated drillings in tunnel boring in tunnels. Also the Telemach to replace, remove the cutting wheels on the tunnel boring machines. And I shared two other examples because, of course, when we talk about robotics, I have to mention the one from Boston Dynamics, but also I like to share with you another example. It's called Anibotics. We've done some pilot with them at Losinger Marazzi, one of our subsidiary in Switzerland, on autonomous moving robots, and we are experimenting the Spot robot from Boston Dynamics also in the north of France, and doing some research on it. Also, more operational, more human-related robots. We've got this mid-weight load displacement robots. The one is a bit more autonomous, called Evidence. It follows you like a dog. Everywhere you go, you have this trolley following you and able to displace like 300 kilograms of loads. And the other one is Carriol, one we've developed with a startup, which is called Carriol, and they developed this specific product for the construction industry. That's some example I had. And the last example I will share with you, it's called L'Extant. So it all started with an R&D project at Bouygues Construction on the remote control of tower cranes. The idea is to make the pilot more comfortable and more assisted, augmented in its operation of the tower crane. And for that, we've been working with L'Extant, a startup in France, with a full system that allows us to replicate the environment of a tower crane and to pilot it. Once I've said that, you can imagine that we've got robots everywhere at Bouygues Construction. Be honest, it's not the case. Adoption is really hard. Adoption is hard at Bouygues Construction, but in any company I know, even my competitors, the best one, it's something that's really new, that is really changing the way we are doing our jobs. When we're talking about robotics, the first robots that came to us, the companies that were offering robots, they came with this idea of selling robots to general contractors. And we are now experiencing new business models that are closer to offering a service. And that's really important as our industry is more service-oriented in a relationship between contractors, subcontractors, and so on, than an industry that is able to handle robots and to buy them. Also, I mentioned a lack of competencies. So far, a site engineer, a worker, a manufacturer, or equipment department in a general contractor, they don't know about a robot. They don't know how to maintain a robot. They don't know how to design a robot. So the idea is really, how can we have a full ecosystem that is able to handle from end to end the application of a robot? You've already seen this robot, but when we think about having a robot on site, most of the operational, they ask for variable tasks and evolving in a non-structured environment. That are two facts that are really important when we are considering about using a robot. And it's the most complicated task, doing it variable and in a non-structured environment. Also, the industry is not really prepared so far. The end-to-end process from the design to the as-built is not ready on the construction site. We have many players entering in it. Also, the subcontracting and the fragmented value chain, it makes the adoption even harder, complicated. Of course, when you think about doing the plumbing with robots, you have to work with your subcontractor when you are a general contractor. So it adds a new player in the game. So it's really something that has to be thought and before going forward. Now I've said the robotics is of course hard with adoption, but it is also a huge opportunity for construction. And we have to keep that in mind, even if you are an innovator, if you are the early adopters, keep in mind that tomorrow we will have this huge opportunity. First, I'd like to mention what I've seen with some of my colleagues from Saint-Gobain or any manufacturer of materials. That's for the manufacturers a new way of applying materials using a robot. So you have to think your materials maybe differently and to invent new materials or new ways of applying those materials on a construction site. Because if it's a robot doing the task, it will not have the same sensibility as could have a craftsman or a worker on a construction site. Then I will also talk about the clients. I shared this on this photo. That's something that we've done in Switzerland with Hilti. And we have this client, really proactive, really a technology adopter, an early adopter. He likes that, and he knows that to change the whole construction chain value, to transform it, the clients need to be at the forefront and need to be at the impulsion of the first step towards more robotics. And it's thanks to him that we launched this experiment with Hilti, with their robot for the installation of different parts on the construction site. Something I'm really convinced doing a tour at Bouygues Construction, talking about robotics with many people on what are the limits of the adoption, what do they need, and so on. I see that the first point is probably the acculturation to what is a robot. So I would suggest for any company going on robotics to first go in a robotics factory to really understand what it is to build a factory, and then to work also on what will it change when you use a robot on a construction site. How many tasks needs to be done by a robot to be competitive? Is that to repeat 100 times the same task, or do it 1,000 times, or just 10 times? And the price also is of course something to address. Experimenting a new ecosystem and a new system, that's what we are doing at Bouygues Construction, as we are really convinced that to implement a robot on the construction site, we need to do it as a system. We won't just bring a robot on a slab and pour concrete. We will rethink the whole system and the whole method about pouring concrete on a slab. And for that, we have developed a program called a Construction Lab. The idea is really to implement several R&D projects together, different solutions, and reinvent a whole system, and not just a unitary solution, a robot that we will place on a construction site. I think it's really important to have this whole 360 view of what it will impact and what needs to be transformed at the same time that you are using robots on a construction site. I put this structure because I really think also that the opportunity is to use robotics as a vector for construction transformation. I mentioned it earlier, one of the barriers to the adoption of robotics is the digital process from end to end. If we are able tomorrow to have this whole platform, a digital platform, from the design to the as-built to the maintenance of the building, then we will be able to have robots on site. And I really think that if we are pushing to try, experiment, doing some pilot with robots on construction site, then the digital transformation will come also, and it is coming almost in the same momentum. So that's really attractive for the robotics for tomorrow, for the construction industry. As a loop, I started with the robot called the Wally. I take this example because Wally is here to clean the planet. but I think that WALL-E could also be the key to accelerate our transition towards a sustainable construction, meaning that robots could be also for great help in the recycling, in the cleaning, in the preparation of construction sites, in the reuse of different materials and so on. And I really think that we have to consider robots as a key element for the climate change that is at the front of the construction industry. Well, that's what I wanted to share with you. And I thank you very much. And I'm really pleased to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julien. Implementing robotics and automation in the construction industry is no easy task, but we see more and more of it, and the change is happening. Now, let's turn back to Michal at the watch party room. Over to you, Michal. Who's with you?
Hey, Aviv. Well, everything is kicking off here upstairs. We did start with a quiet bunch, but it seems like everybody now is networking, chatting. Everybody has something to say. So a great opportunity to have a look behind me just at everything that's happening. The sessions are going great, Aviv, and I think our speakers are really putting an emphasis on some very interesting topics. And Jan-Hendrik Goldbeck, I picked up, he spoke about 3 essential elements to go from a startup or a small company to transitioning into a fully grown company. And he mentioned a singularity of data, so aggregating the data, bringing it together, and then forecasting, the ability to see forward in the construction site. The wake of the entrepreneurial spirit, which I think here in Israel is something that we can all agree is definitely there. We are not lacking any entrepreneurial spirit. And the last point that he mentioned was trust and responsibility between the investor, the entrepreneur, and the client, which is another very important element. But one thing that wasn't mentioned is the importance of government and government support to make sure that the entrepreneurial spirit and all of this cluster of construction keeps growing. And so I did grab here Ronit Eshel from the Israeli Innovation Authority to speak a little bit about the importance and the play that government has in maintaining and ensuring a thriving ecosystem in the construction tech sector. Ronit, thank you for joining me today. Tell us a little bit about how the Israeli Innovation Authority supports the construction tech startups here in Israel.
Thank you, Michal. I'm very happy to be here. The Israel Innovation Authority is actually the government agency responsible for all the funding of innovation in all sectors. In the past 2 years, we were very happy to work with ConTech and the Builders Association and the Ministry of Construction, and we worked on a couple of open calls for technology in the industry of construction. We were happy to receive numerous applications from different companies working on new materials, working on robotics, working on modular and industrial construction, digitalization, and more. And so the government was actually helping out and funding those projects that are still going on, and we're happy to see them progress further. By the end of this month, actually, we're launching a partnership between academia and the construction industry in order to bring in new materials, recyclable materials into the construction and pavement. So I really encourage everyone to walk into our website for the Israel Innovation Authority. We have numerous tracks working on different aspects of circular economy, of sustainability, of new materials, robotics, Industry 4 in construction, and all of that is in there. And of course, approach me with any questions. Thank you.
Great, Rennie. Thank you very much. And we also have a platform called Startup Nation Finder, which we map all the startups within the Israeli ecosystem. And we actually know now that we have about 248 different companies that can be tagged as construction tech and real tech startups, which is fantastic. And they've actually raised over $125 million in 2020, and now 2021 is looking even better than that year. So definitely the sector is doing great. There's always room to grow more, and obviously the role of the government is extremely important for raising this young talent. So thank you for joining me, and Aviv, back to you to continue the broadcast.
Thank you so much. Impressive, impressive. So thank you, Michal, and we will be right back. As you already know, ConTech runs an incubator for Israeli construction tech and prop tech startups. 3 startups recently completed a 6-month incubation program, including personal mentoring, intros to industry executives, biz dev opportunities, and a lot of knowledge, which due to COVID-19 was entirely virtual, but nevertheless very successful. In addition to these startups, we have established a community, an ecosystem that is growing day by day of startups, contractors, investors, and other industry players. Let's meet some of the startups and the people behind them. Each will give a short pitch of up to 6 minutes. The first 3 will be our newest incubator program graduates, StructurePel, Bimmatch, and Bygr. Following them, we'll pitch the more mature startups in our ecosystem, Okibo, Sieve Robotics, Createra, and Manam Applications. Please welcome our first speaker, Ionathan Lazovski, the CEO and founder of StructurePel and the founder of Paragroup Israel. He's a passionate construction tech entrepreneur and researcher with 10 years of experience, an AI and generative design geek with architecture and engineering skills.
Our industry is using too much concrete. Or should I say, we could use less and still get the same quality of construction. We are StructurePel, and we are here to harness the power of AI in order to reduce the needed amount of concrete in our world. After all, concrete holds 8% of the global CO2 emissions. We have assembled the best team possible for the job, a group of seasoned structure engineers who know how to code, how to develop CAD software, and how to implement AI. We are backed by the biggest general contractor in Israel and a well-known VC, along with incredible advisory board from the academy, from the software industry, and from the structural engineering field. Now, we understand the problem, but why do we have it? It all has to do with those who are responsible for the design of concrete structures and their challenges, the structural engineers. They need to face an impossible reality where each day there are less, yet there are more projects to design. And if that is not enough, they have 35% of the project cost on their shoulders. And that leads them to find creative solutions such as thumb rules and design standards, leading them to focus on delivery without having the ability to even think about optimization of volume or cost. You can see behind me the result. They are incredible. We want to change that. And those numbers are the numbers we're already offering with our unique AI-based software solution. Our software sits on the software suite used by the engineer and changes the workflow from repetitive task into a specification task of loads, codes, regulations, pricing, and architectural limitations. Then the AI begins the magic, iterating along through hundreds of different design iterations that it automatically generates, learning from each iteration until reaching the most optimized solution. Then it automatically generates the 3D model and the analytical model and a full structural report to be used by the engineer in the next phase of design process. Roughly 4 weeks job done in 1 hour by the engineer. No learning curve, no heavy calculation servers, and no need in a computer science degree. Our preliminary target audience is 4.5 million big, including real estate developers, project managers, and engineers with software packages pricing from 5,000 to 25,000 euros. We're aiming to reach 0.5% of that market by mid-2025. We have great traction and cooperation with global and local leaders, and we have even got to be selected as one of the 50 most promising ConTech startups of 2020. We have gone through the best accelerators and are proud of having great mentors along the way. In terms of competition, the field of design optimization is in a massive growth with impressive exits and large VC funding. StructurePal have a unique spot in that field, and that is because we address engineers when the others address architects, for the time being. We are StructurePal, and thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you, Ionathan, and good luck with your very worthy cause. Our next speaker is Cheli Wasserman, the CEO and co-founder of Bimmatch. Cheli is an architect with a Master of Architecture from DIA Bauhaus and a BIM expert. Before founding Bimmatch, she worked as a project architect in large architecture firms.
Hi, I'm Cheli, an architect, CEO, and co-founder of Bimmatch. I'm happy to be here today to share with you the work my team and I have been passionately doing for the last 2 years. Bimmatch is a data-driven platform that matches construction solutions with projects for cost-effective and sustainable acquisitions. You probably ask yourself why. Why it's so important to match products to buildings. So the story is about the project managers who face inefficiency as deadlines get shorter and shorter, and still nearly 1,800 hours are spent on searching for the right products and materials. They need highly specified data that is not valid, transparent, nor updated to them. So what they do? They search the web, make phone calls, emails, which can take several of days and weeks. At the end, they use the tried and tested materials, which are not the best match for this specific project requirements. This causes in the later phases of the project major revisions and budget overruns of up to 8.5% of the total construction budget. Moreover, for projects which are not compliant with the green building standards, the project owner gets penalized. This is where Bimmatch comes in. A seamless and a user-friendly platform brought together the needed insight to make choosing the right construction product simple, cost-effective, and green. So how does it work? As planner or project manager upload project to the SaaS application, the system provides best fit products in accordance with the project requirement and green standard. Furthermore, a bill of material is automatically generated, and it calculates product quantities as well as qualities by standards. All stakeholders can access, communicate, and explore alternative products online without requiring BIM software or knowledge. From a high-level perspective, using our Lean BIM solution, manufacturers and vendors can have their Excels and PDF catalogs converted automatically into Lean BIM and receive valuable lead generation and sales. The project manager receives ready-to-execute plans, complete with a BOM all set out and insight into procuring. By using the Bimmatch solution, the project manager saves hours on searching the right and the optimal solution by simply letting the AI work for him or her. As a result, Bimmatch reduces BOM deviation. This will save up to 75% of work effort and up to $100K per project. Ultimately, Bimmatch is a source of data in the construction industry to generate trends and insight for the best fit construction solutions for the cost-effective project and sustainable environments. The market size for construction products and material is growing fast. With an estimated addressable market of $875 billion and huge uptake of BIM from the professional side, 16% growth rate in general construction companies. Our revenue model is based on subscription plan from the manufacturers that will pay according to the number of products, leads, and tenders they use. Construction companies will pay according to the number of project bids and seats they use. A few of our competitive advantages are: one, providing deep technologies to match the best solution to any construction project. Second, enabling a simple, lean, and accessible BIM. And the third is our focus on sustainability. As we are currently raising our seed round, in our journey to become the big data in construction material knowledge, we are looking for the best investors and partners to match us. The leading Israeli companies of material manufacture already did so. We have had some incredible success stories. We are also proud of the partnerships with Salesforce, which enable us to deliver and offer reports to manufacturers and construction companies seamlessly. Bimmatch is trusted by more than 25 major construction companies in large-scale projects. I would like finally to introduce to you our amazing team. Eli is a highly experienced product lead, and Sudhir is our CTO, an experienced system architect and team leader. Thank you, everyone, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you, Cheli and the Bimmatch team. It looks like a very promising solution for project managers. Now, please join me in welcoming Guy Montuelle, the CEO and co-founder of Bygr, a Norway startup with Israeli entrepreneurs. Guy has long experience in IT and business development from the banking and payment industries. After buying a home from a developer, he decided to dedicate his startup to fixing issues in the construction industry.
Hi everybody, my name is Guy and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bygr. Before I'm telling you about the company, I would like to start with a true story that you can imagine who it's based on. A couple buys a home from a property developer, and of course the first thing they do, they pop a champagne because it's, well, the biggest thing you ever buy, and you're happy that you're soon gonna be a homeowner and move into your new home. You realize that you need to make some choices, so you take some phone calls, make some choices, and you think, okay, now I'm finished. Then you realize that you need to take some more choices, for example, the tile shop. So you take some time off from your work, driving to the tile shop, walking there for a couple of hours, only to realize that you maybe not managed to make the choice that you wanted. And then you realize that you became a project manager for your own home, because of all the choices that you need to make. This is what brought me personally into the construction industry, as my background was not from the construction industry. So quickly about the company. We are a Norwegian startup with Israeli founders. We've signed deals of $650,000 since we started commercializing our platforms just less than a year ago. Raised so far $2 million, and today we are 11 full-time employees. So a bit about the construction industry. It's quite unique in that it's project-based. Each project is its own P&L, and the project leader is almost its own CEO. It's custom built, even with prefab, it's still a lot of manual labor. A lot of deviations happen due to different reasons, with a lot of stakeholders, different companies, and again, all of those problems are being emphasized when there's no real IT department in the organization. And the problem we see is that the construction industry is filled with inefficiencies. And this stems mainly from emails and phones, that most of the communication happens through emails and phones. There are several reasons for this, but we believe that it's because what we use today is either too generic, not user-friendly, too niche, or not optimized for external collaboration. And all of that leads to information silos and more mistakes, which again, which we can see that is 5% of all construction contracts are rework today. So what do? We build a construction collaboration platform that is in a way broad enough to solve several problems while being specific enough to handle the quirks of the construction industry, focusing on user friendliness. And at the bottom of all of this, it needs to be optimized for external collaboration. And external collaboration, we mean collaboration between several parties that don't necessarily work in the same organization. So we've got a quite strong market response with 25 plus paying customers in less than a year, and 150 subcontractors are using the platform already. Our users log often into the platform and use it several times a day and even recommend us to others. And we've launched our first two modules, which is multifamily project management and aftermarket, which is the warranty period. So the multifamily project management is basically a platform to help contractors, developers, and home buyers to customize and upgrade their home. The aftermarket is to handle the guarantee period and the documentation. And the next module we're launching will be handover and protocols and inspections to solve all the processes connected to handing over a property. Our customers are happy. This is a GC from Bergen, largest city in Norway, very happy with how Bygr helps their workflow with their subcontractors. And this is a subcontractor that is very happy with how Bygr helps them solve and price their pricing quote, their change requests from the clients. But the reason our clients love us is not just because we are solving just the processes. It's because how the collaboration works. We know that the comment field is not a smart collaboration. What we see with Bygr is that we are letting customers and letting stakeholders talk internally before speaking to another party. And then we know that they dare to write what they want to write in the system and that the documentation is in place. We are selling our software based on a project basis and subscription basis. And our go-to-market is that we see that currently there's not a good solution for multifamily project management and aftermarket, which enables us to make the sale quickly. With great support and great training, we can create stickiness and we upsell to our future modules and products. Each project that is onboarded to the platform invites about 5 to 10 subcontractors and/or architects. And this means that we have direct relationship with them, which enables us to upsell to them later as we expand our product. The market size is big. There are a lot of general contractors and property developers, and the market only increases as we launch more products to the market. The competition is built from either niche players that solve very narrow problem to the bigger ones like Aconex that try to solve larger chunks of the construction industry processes. It's me and my brother who started a company with our core team from both the construction industry, sales, and the IT. And we are now looking to raise $3 million to further expand our product and enter into new markets. And we already have capital committed from some investors locally here in Scandinavia. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much, and back to you at ConTech.
Thank you, Guy. Sounds like a much-needed platform. For the next pitch, please welcome Nadav Shuruk, the co-founder and VP Business Development of Okibo. Nadav has more than 15 years of experience in management, financing, business development, marketing, and operations. He co-founded Okibo in 2018 and leads its business development activity.
Shalom, my name is Nadav Shuruk, co-founder at Okibo. We've developed the world's first fully autonomous painting and plastering robot for construction sites, dealing with one of the major challenges in the construction industry, the lack of skilled professional workers. According to McKinsey, 40% of the current US construction workforce is expected to retire in the next decade. This will put a lot of stress on the finishing sector. COVID-19 made it even worse, with 25% rise in labor costs in just the latest months. This leads to project delays, poor quality, and low productivity. Another major concern is safety, as this tedious and repetitive work causes strain injuries and exposes workers to hazardous substances. The solution for those challenges is automation. Our product is a fully autonomous robot that performs wall and ceiling finishing application, plastering, painting, and sanding. Better, faster, and it's safer. Our robot has high maneuverability in construction sites, more than 3 meters reach. It is battery operated, and it is fully independent unit. But it's not just automation, it is about smart automation. Apart from the robotic platform itself, we have developed 2 core technologies, a real-time 3D perception algorithm and autonomous robotic path planner. Although our product is a hardware solution, the majority of our IP is in the software. We offer high availability of workforce. It is faster, safer, more reliable. On top of that, our simulation environment can provide general contractors with accurate predictions on scheduling and material usage, and it is beam connected. The labor market of painting in the US alone is estimated at around 15 billion a year. The drywall finishing market is estimated at more than 100 billion in Europe and the US alone. In Germany, where we are currently working, there are 250 million square meters that being paint spray every year. We're already offering our robot as a service in market prices. One robot can cover more than 10,000 square meters per 1 month. Next year, we will offer leasing model and sales that will come with software licensing and maintenance packages. Robots in construction is not a futuristic vision. It is happening today. The construction industry has realized that everything that can be automated will be automated. Robotics in general is booming, and there were 38 robotics investments worth close to $5 billion just in April this year. Our solution is robust. It is battery operated, and it's easy to operate. But our solution is different than others, as it is the only fully autonomous solution out there. We started performing paid pilots in Germany with our EG5 model with market leaders, and we are discussing next projects with them, where the robots will be operated by our team. And speaking of teams, Guy German, my co-founder, has 20 years of experience in building products and leading development teams. I have over 15 years of experience in finance, strategy, and management. We are 10 team members. All are experts in their field and are super passionate about Okibo. We plan to continue operate our robots as a service, generating revenues and improving the product. We're looking to engage with more customers in Europe and all around the world. I'll be super excited to show you the robot in action. Thank you very much.
Looks amazing. Thank you, Nadav. We talked about robotics earlier, and it's great to see it in action. Now, let's meet Liav Muller, co-founder and chief product officer of Sieve Robotics. Liav holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering and Economics from the Technion, and he is passionate about working with people and building relationships.
Hey everyone, my name is Liav Muller, co-founder of Sieve Robotics. Today, in every construction project, the land surveyors, those same people that we see with the yellow vest, holding those weird tripods, they are responsible to show us, the different contractors, the locations of where elements need to be built. For example, if you want to build a house, someone has to show you the 4 corners of the house. And now in a bigger scale projects, like infrastructure projects, such as solar farms, roads, and even earthworks, thousands of points need to be marked every single day. This work is tedious, it's time-consuming, and it requires an experienced labor in order to do so. The land surveyors will hold their GPS units, walking around the site and find the points within 2 centimeters GPS accuracy. This is why we developed SievDot, the first autonomous marking robot. With SievDot, it's very simple. You load the list of the coordinates, you press start, and watch it work. The layout process is safer, is faster, and more precise, because it's a robot. It doesn't make mistakes. With SievDot, we were able to lay out more than 2,000 points a day, compared to a single team which can lay out about 250 points a day. That's a big differences. With CivDot, we were able to finish projects sooner and save the contractors a lot of money. For example, right now, there are more than 10 different projects across the US and Asia who are using CivDot to mark coordinates on site. We are even deployed in one of the largest solar farm projects in the US, showing tremendous results to the client, helping him to finish the project sooner and save a lot of costs. Recently, we did a case study comparing our one single CivDot with a one operator compared to 4 crews on the field. 4 crews, it's 8 people. With one CivDot, we were able to lay out the same amount of points a day as those 8 people. By doing so, we were able to cut the cost from $2 million into $500,000 just for the layout. We helped the contractor to finish the project sooner at lower cost while maintaining high quality of work. I would like to invite you to visit our website, www.civrobotics.com, and book a demo today for your next project. Watch with your own eyes how CivDot is laying out points faster while keeping the same accuracy and letting you help your project sooner. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Leah. Very interesting case study. Our next presenter is Adital Ela, the CEO and founder of Createra Innovations. She is an industrial designer and impact-driven entrepreneur in the field of design for sustainability. She holds a master's degree in sustainable design, specializing in re-engineering the way constructive materials are manufactured and introducing fully regenerative construction products within a circular economy.
Hello, I'm Adital Ela. I'm the founder and CEO of Createra. I would like to share with you today Createra's journey towards ecologically innovating the world of construction materials. You may be asking yourselves, what on earth does this lady have to do with construction? Well, as the second generation to a family of builders, and as an industrial designer dedicating the past 20 years towards studying sustainability design, I decided to challenge my heritage, and with my company Createra, work towards creating a reality in which the global waste impact of construction can be reduced from 33% to 0. How do we do this? By changing from the core, the way we make construction materials. No more burning of natural minerals to create building products, but instead applying physics to maximize their cohesion forces. Traditional building materials, such as cement or ceramics, create so much destruction since they are based on incinerating virgin materials in 14 to 1600 degrees. Transforming raw minerals into dead, poisonous matter that are gradually turning the planet into one large graveyard. Createra creates precast products made of natural minerals and vegetal fibers. In our production process, we never go beyond the boiling point of water. Applying low temperatures, we preserve the natural properties of the materials, allowing them to be 100% recycled or eventually degrade to earth. In this way, we create living products that keep the economic and environmental value of natural resources forever. Our building products are as strong as concrete, 6 times more thermal, and yet create only 5% of its environmental imprint. We are doing this while saving up to 90% of the manufacturing energy bill. Our first product line, a collection of wall tiles, is already on the market. We are operating a pilot production plant here in Israel, and we already installed thousands of square meters of tiles in restaurants, in hotels, in offices, and in homes all around the country. They all enjoy the beauty and impact of our ecological tiles. We are currently entering the European market, and are working towards establishing our first European industrial production line. We have had strong market validation and demand from all over the world and are on a roadmap towards meeting this demand. This is only the first step. Tiles are our first product line, and the technology was proven suitable for a wide variety of constructive solutions. Our patented technology is based on a unique algorithm that allows the adaptation to any production location globally. Our R&D lab is working steadily on our next product lines. First, wall claddings and progressing towards load-bearing building bricks. Sustainability without compromising quality is the main driver of this innovation. We created a detailed competitive analysis, and as you can see, our products excel in low embedded energy, in low emissions, and also in thermal resistance, compressive strength, and impact strength. Createra is an R&D company that creates IP. We have been awarded almost 2.5 million euros in grant funding from the Israel Innovation Authority and from the European Union Horizon 2020 program. Our strategy to scale sales rapidly is guided by establishing licensing-based partnerships with leading players in the building industry, including market channel partners and expert manufacturers. Working this way will ensure Createra's market success and, at the same time, support achieving our larger goal of maximizing our positive environmental impact. Our gifted and committed team includes scientists, business strategists, designers, and marketing personnel. Research shows that innovation in construction technology will have more dramatic gains, both environmentally and financially, than any other industry. Join us in transforming construction into a living, circular, positive industrial reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Adital, and good luck in your important mission of reducing global construction waste. Now, please welcome our last speaker for this session, Gilad Shlush, the CEO and co-founder of Manam Applications. Gilad holds a BSc from the Technion and has more than 20 years of civil engineering and technological development experience in both the military and the civil engineering inspection industry. He has developed disruptive technologies for road and bridge inspection using sensors and drones.
Shalom everyone, my name is Gilad and I'm here today to talk to you about the way Manam Application is changing the infrastructure management industry. Our product, 3D BIA, stands for Bridge Inspection Analysis, automates inspections and infrastructure management. Myself, Gilad Shlush, I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Manam Application, civil engineer for 20 years, and lots of experience with software development. Amiel is our CDO, lots of experience in software development, and Oren Wolf is our Chief of Operation in the US. Some background about the bridge inspection market. Routine inspection for bridges is needed every 2 years. Visual inspection is done usually at close range. So we use cranes, snappling, and all kinds of special equipment in order to do the bridge inspection. It's a lengthy process, and it may take some days sometimes to inspect the bridge closely. Most of the reporting is still manual, and mostly has minimal automation. And as I said before, we need lots of specialized equipment. We have some challenges during the bridge inspection. We disrupt the road users. It's dangerous, and the costs of the inspections are quite high. The market size of the bridge inspection is quite big. Only in North America, which has more than 600,000 bridges, the market is worth per year more than $2.5 billion. Worldwide, there are more than 4 million bridges, and the market is more than $10 billion per year. The actors in the bridge inspection are the DOTs, Department of Transportations of states, nations, and cities, and they initiate inspections done by the inspection firms and the subcontractors, crane companies, and safety teams. Our solution is an end-to-end solution and includes the inspection management, sophisticated data analysis, automatic reports, insights, and recommendations how to treat the bridge. From the images of the drone in the field, we create the 3D modeling and the digital twin of the bridge with all the elements of the bridge. In our 3D studio, we upload the drone images, and the bridge engineer can inspect elements closely, and if he finds a defect, he can record it. Some defects analysis is already done by AI, and the managers has tools to manage the survey process. All data is collaborated to our web portal. If we look at the numbers, we see that 50% less time was spent in the field, 80% fewer road closures are needed, 100% visual coverage of the bridge, 70% less time to generate reports, and very important as well is the cost reduction of about 30%, and in the future, maybe more. Some milestones: we raised money a few times, we wrote a patent and registered it in the US, and the product is about to release fully on September 2021, and we hope for the 2022 to go into the US expansion effort. Competitor analysis shows very clearly that Manam is the only company right now, and we are ahead of the market that can deliver all aspects of bridge inspection and management. We look now for a raise of $5 million, and we intend to use the proceeds for research and development. We want to move from beta to production with our software, go deeper into the AI bridge defects analysis and machine learning, scaling of our IT, and launch our US base in a fully manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilad, Ionathan, Cheli, Guy, Nadav, Liav, and Adital for your pitches. It was amazing. I would like to remind you that 15 Israeli startups attend our virtual exhibition throughout our entire conference and are waiting for you in their booths. I encourage you to visit their booths and talk with them face-to-face, on video, connect, network, and explore new business opportunities with them. Also, our B2B system is open and available to you, and you're welcome to schedule your one-on-one meetings. Okay, ready for our next session? A famous Native American proverb says, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children." Next year, in March 2022, the Sustainable Building Israeli Standard, aka the Green Building Standard, will become mandatory after being voluntary for more than 15 years. To celebrate this occasion, we will dedicate the next hour to discuss ways for building a sustainable world. One aspect of sustainability is construction, is the circular economy, which is the topic of our first live panel. I'm very pleased to introduce our panelists and invite them to the stage. I'm honored to say that you will now listen to 4 academic researchers who are also entrepreneurs and leaders in the construction industry. And this is part of the unique DNA of the Startup Nation, combining research and tachlis, which means the real thing in spoken Hebrew. Please welcome Dr. Ido Sela, the CEO of eConcrete, with over 20 years of experience in marine biology and ecology. Dr. Ido Sela is an industry leader in the ecological enhancement of coastal and marine infrastructure. His company brings biological expertise to bridge coastal development and sustainability. Ido earned a PhD in zoology and an MSc in ecology and Environmental Quality from Tel Aviv University. Professor Shani Barath, Director of DD Lab at Technion IIT and co-founder of Shaga Architects. Shani has been an architect and an entrepreneur for almost 20 years. Her studio combines unique planning technology with planning expertise and leads global projects in England, China, and Israel. Adi Magar, the CEO of IRMI. Adi is a PhD student at Porter School of Environment and Earth Sciences, Faculty of Exact Sciences in Israel, and a serial entrepreneur. She is a construction waste treatment consultant for the government and private sector, the founder and chair of IRMI, the Israeli Raw Materials Innovation Forum, the co-founder of Eden, a wood recycling factory. Dr. Tomer Fishman is an assistant professor and a researcher at IDC. His research is focused on understanding the materials that accumulate in society as buildings, infrastructure, products, and how they affect and interact with society, the economy, and he looks for the potentials of win-win between material consumption, economic activity, technology, and development that could lead to a more circular economy. They will all discuss the circular economy as a catalyst to construction tech. To moderate this panel, I'm happy to invite Maya Trachtenberg-Madar, a member of the Deloitte Catalyst Tel Aviv team and the domain manager of PropTech Industry 4.0 and Energy at Deloitte. Maya is also a former executive in the Israeli Green Building Council, ILGBC. Take it from here.
Thank you, Aviv. Hi to all, and welcome to one of the most important sessions of this conference. COVID-19 crisis has shed light on another well-known crisis that has the potential of exponentially harming humanity to a point of no return, and that is, of course, global warming. The construction ecosystem uses almost half of the world's material extracted every year. Moreover, buildings and construction account for more than 35% of global final energy use and nearly 40% of energy-related CO2 emissions. One of the ways to, of course, minimize the global warming effect is to move to a circular economy. But before we dive deeper into this, we talked about COVID-19 just a little bit. And in the past year, we have become well aware of the negative effects that bacteria and viruses have on our lives. But can we look at it in a different perspective, maybe in a positive way? Shani, please share with us how your research brings an innovative angle into new buildings methods.
Okay. Thank you, Maya, for the question. It's really a pleasure to be part of this panel. It's interesting because, first of all, I'm an architect. And it's funny that an architect gets asked about viruses. But this is exactly where I think the interesting part comes. I think that COVID in the past year and a half has actually demonstrated in the best way what disruption is. So we've gone through technological disruptions and through disruptions in the way that we think that I think are starting to be also implemented both in practice but also in research and academia. So I'm a practitioner that became an academic and founded a lab at the Technion, which is called DD Lab, Disrupt Design. And we were looking for moments of disruption in, I would say, conventional, both manufacturing technologies, but also in data infrastructures. And one of the projects that we recently initiated as part of a consortium was a wonderful win that we had within Horizon 2020, which is called Ecolopes. Ecolopes is ecological envelopes. And Ecolopes proposes quite a radical idea and says, why can't the building envelope become a living entity, which not only belongs to the human beings that inhabit the interior of the buildings, but also inhabit animals and plants and also microbiome. Now, this is maybe a bit of a sci-fi scenario, but within our context, what we did is we generated a wonderful consortium of experts. So this is a project that is done with experts from TU Vienna, from TU Munich, from the University of Genoa and also with a software company, McNeil. And the idea is that we're currently working on workflows, on data workflows that are able to take predictive algorithms of the different entities, the different stakeholders of the building envelope, so plants, animals, microbiomes, and human, and bring them within a formulated aspect of some kind of a building block, some kind of a structure that we can incorporate within a building. We just started this. In the Technion, I'm collaborating on this together with Professor Yasha Grofman and together with an ecologist, Asaf Schwartz. So this is one of the aspects of what we see is that we're actually shifting from single disciplinary to multidisciplinary consortium, where we're really able to start to disrupt knowledge in each one of the different aspects. I think that coming from the other angle is that while here we're talking about more of a virtual infrastructure, a software that we're developing that is geared towards building envelopes and building blocks that are soil-based. In the laboratory at the Technion, physically, our facility, which has industrial robots and also large 3D printers, we're developing also soil-based additive manufacturing and looking into renewable materials and natural materials that we can start to convert into building elements. So the idea is that we're coming from an information-centric process and a material-centric process, and we're trying to somehow superposition them together to find new solutions that we can hopefully make applicable. So I think this is my perspective maybe on this topic.
Where did you get inspired of different industries that have done the same?
Well, the thing is that because I come from practice into academia, the idea of sharing and also, the idea of advisors within a project and understanding that not all the knowledge sits within one's head is quite common to me. And I find it also, this is why we wake up in the morning. We wake up in order to have meaning in what we do. And I know that sounds very cliche, but within these kind of topics, step at a time, we make progress, we create knowledge, and we also find ways of implementation. And it could be that the implementation won't actually be within my discipline, will be in one of the other disciplines, but that's already value. And I find that quite interesting.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking about new building methods raises the need to rethink how we resource, design, manufacture, transport, repair, even recycle, and every step of the construction process. As an example, we can talk about concrete, one of the most ancient material that has been used and has a lot of negative effect on the environment. But Ido, please share with us how you found it to create an impact on circular economy.
There's two things. First of all, thank you for inviting me. There's two things that I would like to start. First of all, and actually copying you. So I'm a biologist dealing with concrete, and generally I don't like concrete. As marine biologists, we see concrete structure as an infrastructure that go into the water that is not basically can support biology in a proper way. And when we focusing on that, we saw that if you look at the statistics, 70% of coastal infrastructure worldwide are concrete-based. Taking into account that 50% of us, all of us, are residing along coastlines, this is a lot of infrastructure in the water. There's a lot of concrete in the water. As people that want to deal with the problem, we decided to tackle concrete. And I think that in order for two marine biologists that decided to tackle this issue, we looked for the vectors that will allow us to talk with the industry, which is a very conservative industry. And one of the best vectors we found was architects, because they're open-minded and they allow for new technologies to be there, and they specify it really early in the process. Taking into account, we work in a very conservative industry. All the changes are very slow. If you come as a biologist to an engineer and you're starting to talk to him, the first thing they will do is will shut the door in your face, and you need to find ways to work in this. And what we do in eConcrete is very simple. We develop a technology that we can modify concrete that comply with all the requirements for coastal marine construction, but at the same time provide a better habitat for biology, which means we can now have working waterfronts like ports, breakwaters, industrial waterfronts, piping system that can support biology in a similar way to the natural reef nearby, not exactly the same, but gaining more and more what we call ecosystem services. And if we look at our urban waterfronts or working waterfronts, we are losing more and more and more of those natural resources. If we'll not find a way to modify our infrastructure to support biology, we're going to lose a lot of what we call the biodiversity and the filtration process, the interaction of people with the water. This is what we do with e-concrete. We do it worldwide. We apply the technology in different projects, in different applications. And it's based on making sure that we can go into the process in a very, very smooth way, allowing for all the method of concrete casting to be done in the same way, but the end result will be better for the biology. And I think if we want to touch about the circular economy, there's a lot of discussion of the material and the process of the material, and then its servicing, and then what we're doing after. When we're talking about coastal infrastructure, we're talking about infrastructure that is basically on product that's supposed to be active in the water or active in its environment for 60 to 120 years design life. This is a long time that this product is going to be exposed to the elements, and I think what is important in those type of products is that we're going to also look at how they function through their life. It's a crucial part of what we call, if we look at the circular economy, to start with we looking at the end and understanding how we close the loop after we are taking it apart, but also how it functions through its lifespan. And I think this is what we bring into the industry.
Super unique. Do you think that you're going to get out of the water to the dry land and try to have applications there?
We're starting. We're really focusing on marine environment. We're now going into estuarine and freshwater. We also have some applications that can be done above water. But if you look at the impact, and we're a company that's basically an impact, want to create an impact, want to change, it will not happen on land. The big, huge change will be happening in the sea. And so most of our focus there, and if things are progressing, a part of an R&D, we're always happy to put them into the market.
Thank you. Thank you, Ido. So we all know that in order to create sustainable and profitable companies, the value chain begins in the raw materials. That's the area where you operate, Adi. If you can please share with us what changed in the raw materials of the construction industry, and what is the potential for it for startups to explore and innovate?
Okay, so thank you very much, Maya, for the question, and thank you for, sorry, first time. Thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me, and thank you, Maya, for the question. Let me go back to Israel ecosystem. We're part of the ConTech ecosystem, and actually Israel has today 9 million residents, and we're going to have 10 million residents in just 2 years. Actually, in 2048, 100th anniversary of Israel, we're going to have 15 million people. So living here in a very small country, it's a lot of pressure on not just space, urban spaces, but also how can you build from, or from what, or from which kind of materials. So in order to go to mining processes of taking those raw materials and create from them products, structures, buildings, infrastructure, we need to calculate it. We need to understand more about it. So that's the reason I initiated IRMI, the Israeli Raw Material Innovation Forum, 3.5 years ago. And I published my first book. Part of this panel is a part of it in this book. First ever interview with people who are promoting innovation in raw materials in the sea, in the land, and maybe in the future in space. Actually, raw materials is more complicated because we're not just talking about natural raw materials, we also talk about recycled and how we can reuse recycled aggregates, which is one of my expertise. I'm in this field for over 20 years, and I've worked with government entities and municipalities about how they can implement and reuse those recycled aggregates in infrastructures and buildings. And of course, implement new raw materials, as we just heard. So I think Israel is very well challenged, not just because of the pressures, but also the impact, right? We're talking about sustainability. So in order to produce those raw materials, we're actually creating damage or environmental hazards. So we have to take them in account when we do that. So we have to do it very carefully. So my passion is in materials, but I have to say that I'm really proud of the whole ecosystem of the new raw materials, and as you mentioned, the startups. ConTech, the construction technology startups ecosystem, just published a year ago that we have 24 new raw materials startups in Israel. But last year we had only 10. So we see the growth in it, and we see the potential for investors to come over, take a look, not just what happened in the academia, in practice, in Israel, but also abroad. So I'm quite happy and proud to be part of it, but I do think we have a lot of challenges to do, to go to. So this is my, this is what I want to say.
Thank you. We all know that challenges are accelerator for innovation. And I think this is why Israel is super interesting to look at in that perspective. Where do you think that Israel needs to invest most of its time and efforts, of course?
Okay, this is a very complicated question. But I will say that I kind of hear investors coming over or talking to me about plant-based materials. They're more interested in that, how we can create new things from either mushrooms or kinaf or hempcrete, and we do have great research about that. I see the potential in two ways. Of course, in the sea area, Israel doesn't have any islands, but maybe in the future. And also underground building. We have the biggest cemetery in the world in Jerusalem, and it's underground. So we do have to take a look also not just about the natural, but also other sand and other geologic materials we have underground. We have to take care of them to save our resources for our next generation. So do our best with those we have now. And that's where I think we're going to. Thank you.
Thank you. So with the amazing demand of thousands of buildings a day worldwide, please tell us about your research, Tomer, and how it supports to reduce emissions and increase reuse of construction materials in a way that enhances the circular economy.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you for having me here. It's such a pleasure. The kind of research that we do is trying to look at the macro scale, not just an individual case study of one building or one city, but everything, the entire demand. And the reason for that is because the circular economy concept, talking about using less materials in a more sustainable way, getting more from less materials, requires a lot of effort from all different of these different perspectives, different sides. It would even be maybe unfair to ask a single individual company to do a circular economy concept on their own. It requires this collaboration between designers, architects, production companies that create materials, the construction industry itself, the users, and those that need to handle materials at the end of life. So what we do is look at the entire life cycle of materials, from their extraction through production and manufacturing to the building of buildings and infrastructure, and then the use, which could, as Ido said, could be decades, maybe even hundreds of years, and then at the end of life of those materials. And we look at these not just now, but long term, into the future. By 2050, which materials would be required? How many of them would be required, and where? Is it in countries like Israel, where, as Adi said, there is going to be increasing demand for the increasing population? Is it going to be different in other countries? And if so, what would be the mass of materials that are required? And then, once we know that, we can start asking, can we reduce the need for those materials? There are lots of different strategies to do that. One could be better design, so buildings last longer, and then we reduce demand for further buildings to replace them. Another strategy could be changing materials from ones that are more harmful to the environment to ones that are less harmful. And of course, there are strategies at the end of life to reuse the materials that we already have, basically to treat our buildings and infrastructures as material banks that will become available again in the future. Urban mining, to treat the city as a future potential mine of materials and put them back into use. All of these things require understanding of the materials themselves, but also of the economics of these materials. and even sometimes questions of policy, whether recycling or reuse is available, how to extend the life of buildings. Is it just a technical issue, or is it a social question of are these buildings fulfilling their the reason for which they are existing? And sometimes it's even questions like, where will these materials come from? We try to integrate all of these questions and then run these simulations far into the future to see what would be these demands and these material cycles. And then if we can implement, say, a new technology, how is that going to change the effects, the impact on the environment, on society, but not just in one city, but at scale for the entire globe sometimes. In order to do that, we need to integrate a lot of different disciplines of study, and we need to talk with various people on the ground, but also in government, and to figure out where the actual trigger could occur to make this a more circular economy. In some cases, it even we ask funny questions like, these materials, who owns them? And if we want to reuse them in the future, and that means that they have some economic value, do the owners of the building own those materials too? Or is it the construction company that put them into the building? Is it the recycling company that takes those materials when they demolish the building and put it into reuse? There are lots of very funny questions, in a sense, that somebody needs to ask. But of course, that means that no one single factor or one single player can answer these questions. We need to take a step back, look at the entire life cycle of these materials and figure out what would be the right way. So when we do that, we can get these big answers that can maybe tell us the pathway into these more sustainable circular futures.
Thank you, Tomer. I think you all shared so much knowledge and data within this table, but also outside. So how do you exchange knowledge? You all talk about how important it is to share, disciplines with others and researchers in Israel and abroad. Please share how you try to, talk to your colleagues and make this world a little better than what it is.
I can share that I'm teaching in Pittsburgh in the United States, and I'm trying to figure out how could I... sorry again. I'm teaching in Pittsburgh in the United States, a course for first degree students about not just sustainability, but also construction waste management, innovation in raw materials, and I bring Israeli experts from this ecosystem, from the ConTech ecosystem, and showing them what we're doing here. So we are sharing knowledge and experience, which I think is very, very important. And I think also this panel is an example of how we can be proud of what we're doing and share our knowledge and experience with other people around the globe. So again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Maybe adding on that, I think we need to look, I'm a strong believer of the interaction between people that work together. So one of the most important thing, I think, is for groups from people from completely different disciplines to work together. We have our engineers talking with our biologists, talking with our designers, and our scientific divers. All of them bring something into the discussion. At the end, you get this soup that sometimes is much more than anything you expected in before. We had issues that we were struggling for, basic economic of making a system work so it will be cost effective, and we're stuck, and we're trying to reduce things we're starting to think that are very, very important and taking them out, and suddenly someone came up and said, you know what, if you save 2 hours of a forklift, you can save it. And suddenly you go for a completely different way of thinking, and I think it's super important in our industry to make sure we bring everyone into the table and hear everyone.
Mm-hmm. I maybe can also add to that. I think the idea of dissemination in general is something that is extremely crucial when we even define the steps of how we understand the value of research itself and of projects and implementation of projects. So there is one thing creating the knowledge, but there's another thing of making knowledge accessible. And I think these are two roots that we are responsible to deliver within our work. So one thing is generating the right framework, so the expertise. I mean, it's really one of the most intricate and challenging things is to understand what are the types of expertise you need in order to generate an innovation, let's call it, or a disruption. But the other thing is, how do you make that innovation accessible for dissemination? And I think that is something that, I mean, through conferences that we do, through even through grant proposals, you know, that we generate, through collaborations with industry, through failures and many failures, I think that we disseminate the knowledge.
So just.
I fully agree. I think that's the trick, basically. We need to find these win-win opportunities. And it turns out that with sustainability, it's more often the case that by saving materials, saving time, saving energy, and improving efficiency, we're doing these benefits both for the economic perspective and for the environmental perspective. The kind of research that we do tries to implement that and find these win-win scenarios. And when, for example, there is a new technology or a new way of designing things that comes along, we can immediately plug it into these big models that we have and see how those things could trigger an effect in the long run on the entire stock of buildings that will be needed in the future.
This is great. So we're almost at our time. If you, any of you can just give a small tip to the entrepreneurs and stockholders that are watching us right now and experience failure, what can they have as a tip in the sustainable world in your perspectives? Fail a lot.
Be ready for challenges. I think it's true for the entrepreneurs and specifically for the people who invest in those entrepreneurs. In this industry, you need to find people that will back you up when issues are coming up. As we talk about scaling up, also the mistakes are much more expensive, and you need to find the right people to support you.
I agree, and I think we need to be modest. People who want to join us needs to be modest and needs to be open-minded, but also hearing and listening, and also take responsibility. If you want to take part in this experience, be responsible for what you do. Either it's a research, either it's the practical world, be responsible for it.
So we're just at the end of our time. I'd like to thank again the great panelists. I know I learned a lot today. I'm sure you all did as well. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Now let's turn back to Michal at the watch party room.
Hi, Aviv. Well, the watch party is going great. As you can see behind me, everybody is having long conversations about various topics. We even have Zachi, who's joined us here on the 4th floor and entertaining our guests here at the ConTech conference 2021. And I actually grabbed my colleague to have this conversation just now, Daniela Kendall, who is the Senior Director of the Innovation Bridges and Impact. Hi, Daniela. Thank you for joining me now and just grabbing you here in the middle of our watch party. And actually on topic and exactly following on the conversation that our panel just had, they discussed the sustainable construction, circular economy, materials, and I wanted to take the conversation and zoom out a little bit and I actually ask Daniela a question about how central and important is the shift to thoughtful construction, usage of renewable materials, infrastructure that is energy conscientious. How important is it for the larger context of climate change, which is one of the topics that you deal with in your day-to-day work?
Sure, thank you. Hello, everyone. So this is an extremely important topic and an extremely important trend, and we can see this as part of the climate economy and the climate shift that is happening right now with players like Amazon, BlackRock and Temasek just opened a fund. EU is now looking at the impact measures and starting to be more conscientious about their climate. This is exactly the time to start looking at construction as well, and an opportunity as construction tech has been growing. Has been a growing ecosystem here in Israel and globally. And when we look at the importance from how we gather the materials, all the things that were discussed, how we gather the materials, how we build these our lives in every country in the world, our cities, how we manage our energy. You know, construction tech and construction, the perspective of the project from day one, before you just even gathering the materials, and then the longevity of these buildings and how efficient they are, has a huge footprint on climate and can have a huge footprint on, or a huge impact on reducing the climate risks. So I think this is the time to be in this space, and there's a great opportunity from climate-minded investors, which are worth today trillions and trillions of dollars, moving in that direction.
So really on that, Daniela, startups, right? So startups that want to get into the green tech area, listening in now and kind of going, yeah, great, I want to do green tech, I want to deal with green tech technologies in construction. What do you think are the main challenges? What do Israeli startups or startups in general need to understand in order to start talking the talk, in order to walk the walk?
Oh, that's a loaded question. That's a good question. Israeli companies in general, we're good at the technology side. The research, the materials, we have the brains. What we don't understand is the dynamics of the market and what is needed when pitching not only an investor that we have enough practice in, but when looking at a conscientious investor about climate and mitigation, you have to be rigorous and be able to measure the impact that you're creating, not only the value of the technology directly or the materials that you're using, but how that is reducing carbon, how that is impacting the environment, how that will reduce the cost of energy over time for the different utilities and in general to operate the different infrastructures. So really it's about understanding the core of measurement, how to measure and how to communicate the strategy around not only the deployment of the technology, but how that technology will change the lives of the people that will then live around it or live within it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Daniela. That's definitely, I think, Aviv, quite a few tips there also for startups in the area and the importance of what we just discussed for everybody. And it touches all of our lives, mine and yours as well. So from our watch party on the 4th floor with lots of very smart people now talking to each other. Thank you, Aviv, and back to you in the broadcast studio.
Thank you, Michal, absolutely. And we'll be right back. Our next speaker addresses a different aspect of sustainability, decarbonizing the construction ecosystem. Alex Brihak is a management consultant with McKinsey & Company based in Geneva, Switzerland. He works with engineering and construction organizations and has a master's degree in construction engineering.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Brihak, and I'm a consultant with McKinsey & Company based out of the Geneva office in Switzerland. Prior to McKinsey, I worked for a construction company in North America, and at McKinsey, I worked with stakeholders across the construction ecosystem, from owners and investors to engineering firms and construction companies. It is no surprise that the issue of sustainability has become a top concern for the construction sector. Since pre-industrial levels, global temperatures have increased by more than 1 degree Celsius. The construction industry, like every other sector, is slowly taking note of the pivot towards sustainable buildings and processes, aiming to support the net carbon neutrality to be achieved by 2050 by most government agendas. Today, I would like to focus on the transition risk for the industry and highlight some findings from a recent McKinsey research in this area. First, decarbonization of the construction industry is very important. The construction industry is a gigantic ecosystem. Across its entire life cycle, it affects 25% of total emissions and 40% of global CO2 emissions. Of these, approximately 30% are generated by processing materials, with the balance of 70% generated by building operations. Given the size of the impact of the industry, we expect to see a lot of pressure across the construction value chain to do something about it. The construction industry is also very complex, with multiple players involved and far less ability to impact emissions by adjusting just a few parameters. And the output, which are the finished buildings, the projects, are locked in for over 50 years, which is the typical life expectancy of a building. As a matter of fact, in 2050, when the building sector is supposed to be close to net zero CO2 emissions, 80% of the future stock is already around today. Therefore, one of the biggest drivers for decarbonization, the sector, will be not just the construction, but also the renovation of the existing stock. Second, in terms of sustainability, the construction industry is like a giant which is just waking up. In a recent survey done by McKinsey with CXOs across the industry, 79% of them classify sustainability as the top priority for their organization. While some other sectors are already quite advanced in their sustainability journey, and the construction industry has been lagging so far, we see evidence that this is truly taking off. So some examples that we see are, for example, steel players have invested in excess of $16 billion into researching and converting their plants to be more carbon neutral, for example, like leveraging hydrogen fuel. Cement players are starting to create spin-off incubators, which work on net zero cement production processes. Most large engineering and design firms now offer full life cycle solutions, like offering digital twins and other end-to-end solutions which can be applied from planning all the way to building operations. Most larger construction companies are announcing targets. For example, a lot of the EPCs are announcing net zero construction processes by 2030. And even from the digital space, a large construction software platform now has created a carbon calculator that's free to access for everyone, where as an owner, you can actually estimate the carbon footprint of your building. So therefore, what are some of the solutions to these issues? At McKinsey recently, we've done two analyses. First, we looked at building operations, which generates 70% of the emissions in the sector. And we scanned more than 230 million buildings across Europe and did a detailed modeling of the most cost-effective decarbonization pathways that you can take for these buildings. Second, we looked at construction and processing of materials, which generates pretty much the balance of 30% of emissions. We took a sample 5-story building and modeled emissions generated by each step of the construction process. We found from this analysis the following. Number one, for building operations, 70% of the energy that goes into the building is used for space and water heating. And while energy consumption is not the same as emissions, it can be a good indicator of where to focus. We also quantified the impact of abatement solutions for space and water heating. And we found that the average cost for abatement of building operations is approximately 5 euros per ton of CO2, which is much, much lower than most other industries like agriculture, which is 25 euros per ton of CO2, or transport, which is 120 euros per ton of CO2. That means that the low cost required for abatement of such a big chunk of global emissions, their construction and building operations, could actually favor the sector into rapidly taking off over the upcoming years. Looking at the cost benefit of these solutions, we found that no-brainer moves are solar and thermal localized generation, gas boilers, and low to mid insulation. We also saw across the full spectrum of solutions that while insulation is important, it actually plays a smaller part towards carbon neutrality, and that replacing heating sources accounts for about 80% of the total solutions. So that was for building operations. For constructions, about 60% of emissions are generated by concrete and steel processing, followed by 25% for other materials like gypsum, tiles, and glass, which is a long tail of too complex to address. And finally, about 10 to 15% only is generated by transport and on-site construction activities. The overall abatement is slightly higher than building operations, especially due to high investment in cement and steel production processes. And looking at the solution space, looking at the cost benefit of these solutions, we found that no-brainer moves are, as you can probably expect, optimizing the building footprint and design. And other solutions with high impact include alternative materials, reusing existing or on-site materials, and finally, new technologies for material processing and electrification of on-site heavy equipment. So what can we expect next? As we saw, construction industry generates 40% of CO2 emissions, but through building operations has one of the lowest costs to abate it. And this will probably create significant external pressure on the ecosystem, which can accelerate adoption of these sustainable solutions. We also saw that 80% of the stock in 2050 already exists today, which most likely will soon attract lots of focus on rehabilitation of existing structures. However, with so many different players along the different phases of a project lifecycle, no player can address any large opportunity alone. And therefore, they must break out of the current silos. And to that end, we also start to see activity across companies. For example, financing stakeholders, they start to implement sustainability requirements in their investors. And this is not just the checklist of the investment criteria, but it's also an important dimension which defines their portfolio strategy. We see infrastructure and real estate owners starting to ask questions, how do we secure green steel? And then we see material manufacturers like steel players starting to estimate the demand for hydrogen-based steel in order to identify investments in their production lines. So overall, this informs us that we are at a point where everybody feels this is important, wonders what everyone else is doing, and starts to make commitments and investments in sustainability, which further suggests that we are about to see a huge takeoff in sustainability in our industry. So this giant, which has been sleeping and slowly waking up, might be awake quite soon and up and running. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Before you leave, maybe a couple of questions. First of all, will the cost to operate buildings significantly increase once these abatement solutions are implemented?
Thanks, Aviv. No, not significantly. The average cost of €5 per ton of CO2 for the industry is one of the lowest, actually, when compared to other industries, and it already includes the total cost of ownership. So it already includes it.
And how will modular construction impact emissions?
Modular construction typically reduces quantities of waste and also significantly reduces activities on site, replaces them with activities offsite in a factory-like environment. So overall, it does reduce emissions, but it's one of the many, many levers that you need to pull because you still need your cement, you still need your steel, and you still need the transport to the project site.
Amazing. Thank you, Alex, for sharing this valuable information with us. The data and information collected and published by McKinsey & Company about our industry is absolutely priceless. We will continue right away. For decades, the construction industry has been slow to adopt changes, but the COVID-19 pandemic did not leave much choice. Safety and productivity issues needed to be addressed instantly, and the new challenges presented a great opportunity and pushed the industry and tech adoption forward. Our third conference pillar deals with digitizing the construction world, focusing on strategy, safety, and productivity. During this session, we will hold simultaneous lectures, and you are welcome to choose between sessions in Hall 1 and Hall 2. In Hall 1, where we are right now, Robert Otani will argue that the future of AI/ML in AAC is now. Robert Otani is the CTO of Thornton Tomasetti, a multidisciplinary engineering and consulting firm. Robert is the firm liaison with Twin, an entity created by Thornton Tomasetti focused on driving innovation to the commercialization of products, including Swarm and Construe. He has over 25 years of structural design and project management experience and founded Core in 2011. Simultaneously, in Hall 2, we have two additional lectures. Harry Ebbs, the Design Technology Studio Director at Gensler, will speak about design technology co-creating to design the future. Harry is an experienced executive professional in design, technology, business process analysis, and change management. With 14 years of experience, Harry has worked on a number of large, high-profile international projects, including the award-winning Sberbank Technopark project in Moscow and the winning design for Navi Mumbai International Airport. Following Harry Ibbs, Mark Goldman, the Director of AEC Industry Solutions at Esri, will discuss GIS, BIM, and digital twins in construction. Mark is leading expert in GIS and BIM and its impact on the design and construction industry. Over the last 2 decades, Mark has formed, hired, managed, mentored, and inspired marketing, sales, and development teams in organizations of all sizes. He studied architecture and civil engineering at Tulan University. To transition to Hall 2, please select Schedule on the top menu and then select the lecture you want to listen to. Do the same when you want to return to Hall 1. And after this long introduction, please welcome Robert Otani and Harry Ibbs.
So hi, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the future of AI, ML, and the reason why I think it in our industry in AEC is now. My name is Rob Otani. I'm Chief Technology Officer at Thornton Tomasetti, and I want to thank ConTech and the Construction 4.0 event for this presentation. Thornton Tomasetti is a large engineering office around the world. We do mostly vertical type structures from small to the tallest building in the world. And I run a group called CORE, which is sort of our innovation engine at Thornton Tomasetti, that we have sort of 4 services in applications development, core modeling, computational modeling, AI and ML, which I'll talk about today, and general R&D. So we're sort of organized in this fashion. We have these sort of 3 focuses on efficiency, automation, and R&D. And for some products that we think are more beneficial outside of the company, we push them out to a startup called our twin entity. So why AI and ML now? Well, we think that there's significant gains that could be had in speed and productivity, that it will solve the problem in our industry of parallel design collaboration, which is mostly right now done in series. We think that there's a significant opportunity for knowledge transfer and knowledge accessibility within large offices and around the community. And then we think that will allow creativity, both from AI doing mundane tasks, but also creating new ideas about design using AI and ML. It will open up significantly new services in our industry, as well as integrations with building digital twins. So the industry is typically, in tech, that is far ahead of where we are now. And so I think that we're sort of right at this juncture where AEC is ripe to start leveraging this technology for our services. In 2014, I gave this presentation about big data, and I didn't know anything about AI at that time, but in my mind, now that I look back at it, I was actually talking about AI. And so the people on the left were experts in our offices, designing the tallest building around the world and the most complex projects. How do you take that really intelligence, that intelligent sort of minds and processes, and harness that into an application? Well, that's machine learning and AI. And more broadly, I think it looks like this: is how do you take the entirety of the company or the industry's knowledge and put that into apps, or at least series of apps that can be leveraged for the rest of eternity, essentially. Currently, when there's a very smart person in an office, when they retire, well, guess what? Their intelligence leaves the company and is no longer to be had, which is sort of, how we make money is from our intelligence. So how can we embed that intelligence into an app? So we started this research in 2015 when one of my application developers sort of explained machine learning to me. And we published this article in 2015 at the International Association of Shell and Spatial Structures Symposium, where we used machine learning to predict the embodied energy of a generic building with various parameters. The parameters you see on the left there, which ended up having 10 million possible combinations of parameters. That would have taken 95 years. Each calculation took 5 minutes. So we used linear regression and produced that same design space in under an hour, essentially, using AI. And that was one of the first papers that you'll see on machine learning in our industry. And it sort of really opened up the eyes from our firm and from our studio of what can be done using AI. So in 2018, we released an app called Asterisk, which was structural engineering for ML. And basically what it does is it designs a complete building, structural design, beams, columns, floors, slabs, and foundations in under a minute, just from amassing the perimeter outline of a building, either in steel or concrete, and calculate sort of the sort of high level metrics of the weight of the structure, the cost per square foot of the structure, and the embodied energy of the structure. This was probably ahead of its time a bit, and we've been using this in our practice for multiple projects. Fast forward to about a year and a half ago, we started to research how computer vision can be used in our business. And so we created this startup called T2D2.ai, which uses multiple ML models to basically do what multiple people do in weeks. We can do it in a day. And basically it calculates whether something is structural or non-structural, the sort of proximities or the distance from the object, classifies the material, as well as classifies the damage detection, of which we've trained this model on terabytes of information from our office. And basically just from an image, it starts to categorize and quantify damage, facade damage. And this is just a video of how it works. So basically there are multiple classifiers. We're using the technology of today, which is extremely powerful. And you can see there it's detecting damage right next to what the human actually predicted in a very sort of high rate of accuracy. It's not going to be perfect, and we don't expect it to be, but if it can do what a human does, again, in hours versus weeks, that's significant improvement to that type of practice. So this is still in the R&D stages, but we think there's significant benefit for this. This is how do you use BIM data to train AI models. We released a software in 2016 called Constru, which is basically a data schema for BIM models. And so what it does is it connects all of these different applications and processes into the sort of central model database. And so what it does is, and today I'm going to talk about the AI ML part. Basically what it does is, this is the building I designed in 2012, essentially is finished in 2015. What it does is take the entire BIM model and flattens it out into a database. So this is an Excel file of that entire model. And so with this structured data, we can then create AI ML models from that structured data. And it's hard to see there, but all the information for that BIM model that you see in three-dimensional space is flattened out into a 2D database. So we did a test just for the columns in that particular model that you saw there to see if we can create a machine learning model just from the columns in that particular model. We use these tools. We were able to demonstrate just from that model that you can do this just from a single BIM model. Now imagine if you take all of the BIM models in our industry, or at least in our office, you'll be able to use ML from pre-existing designs. Lastly, this is something that I think is needed in our industry. We're calling it Cortex. It's something that we're working on now, which is a platform for data set training and API model deployment. So why are we doing this? That Asterisk app that I showed you took 2 years to develop. The majority of that time was actually creating the machine learning models. The application probably only took about 6 months, but there's significant time lag in going from data to model. And what we want to do is shorten that time significantly. So this has a centralized deployment for bespoke AI models. There's a simple API call for various models that you want to open up to your collaborators, and it's completely shareable. So I show this self-driving car analogy of how there's millions of data points and data sets to train a car, but there's only 3 outputs. There's a steering wheel, there's a gas pedal, and the brake pedal. And it's significantly complex, right? They're years away from having a true AI-based level 5 autonomous car. So in our industry, it's actually simpler, less data, but we have significantly sort of more little, I call them ML micro apps that are required. The other complexity is that our sort of workflow is circular. But so what Cortex AI is to do is try to sort of simplify this part so that they can be deployed in multiple applications. So you can take all these various bespoke AI, I call them micro apps, and have an API call so that anybody can access various API models, ML models, for their particular design. So that's the promise, I think, of AI, which is to leverage the intelligence of the entirety of the firm into either a single app or multiple versions of apps. I think this is just the beginning. So I appreciate the time, and I appreciate ConTech for giving the opportunity to present this latest technology, and looking forward to what's coming next. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, so much, and we'll be right back. For the next lecture, please give a warm welcome to David Weir-McCall, who is the AEC Strategic Development at Epic Games. Yes, Epic Games. From a background of architecture and technology, David currently works with the Epic Games enterprise team in the AEC, spearheading the company's initiatives in technological innovation with the Unreal Engine and his company's AEC partners. David will lecture about digital twins, the foundations of the metaverse.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me today at Construction 4.0. I'm really excited to be here, and today I'm going to be talking about digital twins and the foundations of the metaverse. Really powerful title, but I want to go a little bit into what some of these terms mean. But before we get started, just a quick introduction to myself and obviously the company which I'm coming from, which is Epic Games. So my name is David Weir-McCall. I work with the AEC Enterprise at Epic Games. So what that basically means is we have this amazing tool called the Unreal Engine, which is this game engine platform that we use for all our game side, the Fortnite, Gears of War, Infinity Blade. But that same tool is used to create Fortnite and all these other games. We license that out to other game developers. And that little box in the top right-hand corner, that's where I sit, and specifically within the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. And it's how people are using these game engine tools in these non-games field, in automotive and manufacturing and training and simulation. And today we're going to be going over and showing a little bit more about how Unreal Engine and these game engines are being used within the AEC space. So it's a little bit away from maybe the game space, a little bit more into the building side of things. So it won't be any Star Wars Mandalorian, but we'll still talk you through some great examples. So before we talk about the metaverse and before we talk about digital twins, for those of you who are maybe a little bit unaware of who we are and what we do, I do just want to give a little bit of a background, give you more of an idea about the tools that we have before jumping into it. And So Unreal Engine is just one of the tools that we have. The other one we have is a tool called Twinmotion. And these software tools are, their primary use is to create experiences, is to create visuals visuals for this complex backend, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with working with. And Twinmotion is the simple version. It's very clean UI. It's very, the way we actually come to describe it is talking about architectural visualizations in a few clicks. So it's a tool that links to your proprietary design tools, Revits, Rhinos, or Tesla structures, or a bunch of these other tools. And it's there for you to create this kind of visual world, this client-end experience with smart assets, with trees that grow, cars that move around, a 3D real-time environment for you to create and to showcase or to communicate design ideas or information to your end users. And there's a whole host of stuff in there which are really dedicated towards the AEC, including hundreds and thousands of assets, absolutely free, including a number of construction ones. There's a great phasing tool to kind of show the build and construction of projects over time. And this tool is really sort of straightforward. It's very simple, whereas the Unreal Engine, we generally describe as being this advanced 3D real-time creation platform. Now, we're going to get into this one a little bit more, because what that basically means is you can take your models and you can create these custom bespoke experiences within them. Now, whether that's I want to create a city or a world, or so I want to create an environment where I welcome in people from across the globe into the same place, this is what we're going to be talking about today within the idea of a larger metaverse. And I'm not going to go into this side of it too much. I'm going to keep it very high level, but these are the four things which we believe are really crucial to that metaverse and really crucial into the development of our tools. From data aggregation, because we want to make sure that no matter what data you're using, it comes into the engine okay, all the way down to collaboration, to make sure that it's not just a single user experience, it's a many user experience. And there's a couple of great organizations and companies out there who are utilizing our tools within the construction space currently. Goldbeck Construction use Unreal Engine to create a simple end-user facing phasing tool to allow them to create their own custom maps, bring in their own models, and showcase design elements within this 3D world in a step-by-step process, so people within the field or even the end users or stakeholders will be able to understand it more as well. And the Unreal Engine, on that data side, working with LiDAR scan technology, you can actually come in and create these great instructional videos on how you build these processes out. All the way through to One Reality, you actually use it as a training tool. So they've created this custom unique experience which allows users to experience what it's like to work in these spaces prior to getting there, to train them up on the dangers of a construction site, but also how to use the equipment, both on a desktop version and a virtual reality headset, which I generally love the kind of VR side of using a real buzzsaw at the same time as using a virtual one. Lots of fun in that one. So now that we have a better picture of how the engine works, I want to talk about this idea of a metaverse. Now, it's a macro term that you've probably heard a couple of times. Our CEO describes it as being the concept of an equivalent digital reality that people exist in, simultaneously a real one. Now, those of you who are familiar with digital twins, you might start to think, well, that sounds awfully similar to a digital twin. And that's really where I want to get to today. And so just before we jump into the digital twin side of it, we define this metaverse by being this kind of 3D social environment. We want to welcome in people from across the world. We wanted to make it collaborative and open and free and available. And if you're still struggling to imagine what this metaverse could look like or how it might work, one of the best case examples that we're doing sort of early tests on and early sort of beta tools on is Fortnite. And a great sort of test pilot we did last year was we actually hosted a Travis Scott concert. Now, if you have kids or you're relatively 20, you might know who Travis Scott is. But we hosted this live concert in Fortnite to kind of allow people from around the world to come and watch this performance. And the platform was able to handle 27 million people watching this concert at the same time. But more importantly, what we discovered by having this virtual event is the impact it had to the real world. Travis Scott was shot to #1 across Apple Music, Spotify, Twitter. It was the largest streaming debut ever, 44 million streams in 1 week. So this simple interaction in this digital world actually had impacts everywhere else. And this is where we see the importance of the metaverse, is that connection from the digital world to the physical world. So we're seeing very early tools. The Unreal Engine is being used as the kind of tool to create the metaverse and to create these experiences. But before we get there, before we get to the metaverse, we really want to look at creating this really strong, robust connection from digital to physical. And so there's this very old sort of design principle from architecture called form follows function. And that's this idea that the function of it and how it processes and works needs to be really cemented in place before we look at the form of it. And this is where the digital twin side of things come in, is that we really want to create that nice sort of that sort of structured back end before we look at creating this sort of very beautiful UI front end. And in the digital twin conversation, which is the 3D representation of the physical asset, but with a live continuous data flow, the visual side and the form side of this is really the tip of the iceberg. We often hear it being called gamification, but we really need this sort of back-end IoT infrastructure in place before we look at creating these experiences. Now, what I want to share with you today is how some of these people have taken these very complex back-end IoT data sets and translated them visually using the Unreal Engine to create that gamification layer to data. Help people translate data in context to help turn it into information. And this is where Unreal Engine plays a part in the digital twin, is to translate that data that we have from construction sites, from locations in the 3D world for the end users. And that really works by doing a couple of things. We take the 3D geometry, we take the IoT data, and we bring this together and we aggregate this data into one place and we create this user interface. So I want to share with you a couple of examples of people who have taken this kind of structure of 3D geometry, IoT data, and created a front-end UI, starting with 51 World. So 51 World are the pioneers in digital twins and real-time render tools, where they've done exactly just as we've described. They have this data from one of their sites. Let's take a factory as an initial example. And they've got the 3D model from it. And they bring these two together and they've created this UI front end so that an end user can go around the site, find out how assets are performing. They can find out how spaces are being used to navigate through, where people are walking, where they're going, how spaces are operating at any one time. So we are the visual front layer and also the ability to visually control the scene. So I can show things like heat maps and I can custom the visuals of the scene to best get an information or an idea across. Like, as an example, if I wanted to close off the escalators, how would that affect public or pedestrian flow through a space? Another good example of a digital twin is the work that's been done with Cognite. Now, Cognite are a data software platform for the energy sector. They're in construction as well, where they have created this tool that allows you to dissect through the 3D geometry, the IoT data, and created this great UI front layer. So you can click on assets and not only see the live data from it in the 3D model, but drawings allow you an interactive way that you can cut through it and see your modeling your data in more context. So we're seeing all these different ways that you can aggregate data into the one source and visually translate it. What I also love about what people are using these tools for is that we're not stopping at just buildings. We're not just stopping at factories. Is that we're now starting to see this kind of data aggregation and sources go all the way through to the kind of city size and city scale developments, where we're now starting to see digital twins in Unreal Engine of entire cities, like the building Wellington digital twin by Build Media. And what they've done is they've collaborated BIM data, GIS data, photogrammetry scans, and created a user-facing digital twin. So a portal which citizens of the city can get onto to see future developments around the city. That they can see live data coming from the city, like transportation routes, where buses are currently in the city. You can also use this to kind of see how, as a whole, holistic approach, how the city's working, where flights are coming in and out of, all the way down to the micro level of what parking spaces are free throughout the city. And all of these different tools, again, they look at bringing in the 3D geometry and they look at bringing in the IoT data into the centralized location so you can view it and have this gamification layer. And the last one I'll share is where we're going with this. And then the roadmap and the foundation of the metaverse is, let's not just look at a city, let's look at an entire world database. So you might be familiar with the ArcGIS database from Esri. There's another one, CCM. Both have plugins to the engine that allow you to have access at your fingertips, a global mapping system, a global GIS tool that you can layer in data and you can layer in information so that this information can be streamed to iPads, to desktops, so you can get an entire world at your fingertips. And this is really where we're going with this idea of a metaverse, about this idea of having not just sort of a 3D model in a space, but an entire world in a database. And like Fortnite, bringing in people across the world into that same space. And not just that, but then also linking in live IoT data. And so we're at a stage now, and we're at this really unique opportunity where we're in the process of creating that function, where the form of the metaverse will follow what we do in the construction industry, because digital twins and that connection to the real world is really the foundations of where this future digital ecosystem will exist. And all of these things like data aggregation and collaboration, connected ecosystem are all just part of that. And if you want to see a little bit of a snapshot into what's coming with the metaverse, we're making huge steps forward, and we recently acquired Capturing Reality so we can better capture the world around us. It's a great software tool so you can bring these super hyper realistic 3D models into the engine of spaces, all the way through to actually visually representing yourself as a 3D avatar in these spaces. So the future metaverse is this great sort of idea, and we're slowly piecing it together. And with the release of Unreal Engine 5 coming, I think, at the end of the year or start 2022, we're really looking at bridging the gap between the digital reality and the physical one, and having that connection as streamlined as possible. So big thinking, big ideas on what's coming, some great sort of stuff that we're seeing at the moment. But I think there's a huge part for the AEC industry to play, and especially the kind of ConTech community to help chip into this idea of a future metaverse. Who better to design the digital metaverse and the digital reality than those who are currently building, designing, and constructing the real one?
Insane. So David, you're saying that games like Fortnite that have created a revolution in the gaming space are just a beta site for a virtual universe? How is the experience in the gaming world helping you understand other industries like construction?
Thank you, Aviv. Great question. So the way we see it is the Unreal Engine is the tool for the metaverse. So what we see at the moment is the game industry and things like Fortnite pushing the boundaries on what's possible for this future world. You know, whether or not the capacity of how many people we can have virtually in the one space, or what the largest model or world that we can be standing in. And we're seeing these different areas, not just the games, but the AEC space, really challenging and pushing those boxes. So I think in this larger scheme of the metaverse, what we see is a lot of sort of test beds and early betas which are using these tools, and we'll constantly keep updating the tools to be better and better to support that. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, David, and we'll be right back. The last two lectures of the day are taking place simultaneously, so I remind you that you can switch between Hall 1 and 2 by selecting Schedule on the top menu and then clicking on one of the two present lectures. Here in Hall 1, Lin Chua will give her lecture Built on the Red Dot Survivor Singapore. Lin is the founding technologist of smart cities and urban infrastructure at TechNowals, a Singapore-based independent consultancy that builds digital twins models for smart cities applications using geospatial information, building information modeling, generative and computational design, photogrammetry, and virtual reality. She is a mechanical engineer by training who has worked across transportation, construction, and manufacturing. In Hall 2, you can listen to Jeff Bornstein, the president of the Association for Advancing Automation, A3, who will speak about the growth of robotics and emerging applications in construction. The Association for Advancing Automation is the leading North American trade group representing over 1,100 global companies involved in robotics, artificial intelligence, vision, motion control, and related automation technologies. Please welcome Lynn and Jeff.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you, ConTech, for having me at Construction 4.0. And my name is Lynn. I'm from Singapore, and this is built on a red dot and some of the lessons that we have learned and how we are going to survive. So welcome to the kampong. Have you eaten? That's how we greet one another. So we love our food. It's a melting pot of all the food and also arts and culture. And you can see how that's influenced some of our architecture as well. And that's the Esplanade, which is a place for local arts and culture. And that's by the Marina Bay. So who are we? In Singapore, we are a small little red dot. And in 1998, we had a world leader actually say that all the green around us is all in another country, and that small little red dot is Singapore. So we have no natural resources. We have to survive on our own, and we are really tiny. Who are we? We're actually in the whole of Southeast Asia. We occupy a whole landmass of 700 kilometers. We have a population of 5.6, and we have a huge population density of 7.7 per square kilometer. So that's actually a pretty dense population that we have. And while we are small, we also suffered very early on from overcrowding. So this was the British plan of 1822, when we were still Sin City. It was chaotic, it was unwieldy, and it was a metropolis of everything that you could find, but very chaotic. And so that's how we had Housing Development Board and Public Works Department later setting up following the Singapore Improvement Trust, right? And after that, to actually combat some of the sanitation issues, we had our Singaporean start the World Toilet Organization. So we've got some innovative people. Along with the planning, over the years with our Urban Redevelopment Authority in Singapore, we've also started doing digital twins. We've started planning districts, for example, Virtual Singapore, and that was to simulate the whole city island in 3D, and to actually do a lot of the risk mitigation and disaster planning. We also have Punggol Digital District, which is meant to be a hub of all the IT innovation, and that's another industry right in the northeast side of Singapore. And we also have industry with Jurong Innovation District in the southwest side of Singapore, and that's where all the government offices are. And it all started with planning of the Marina Bay District. So you can see with all the different solutions that we've employed, it really takes a village. From concrete innovation to structural to cooling solutions, to piping, steelworks, and precast and prefabrication. So along with all that, you can see that in Singapore, we have a whole of government plan. So the latest one is the whole of government green plan, which involves finance, green bonds, sustainable living, urban infrastructure, green economy, and also all that for resilient future. Right, so these are all the plans that we have, including transportation, infrastructure, and all that is aligned with the UN sustainable goals. And that's something that we need to target to combat some of the effects of climate change. Another thing that we actually have to deal with is a silver tsunami and a talent shortage that we face, right? So how are we going to do all that? We actually started this journey a few years backtrack in 2015, where we actually had a whole of government smart nation initiative to actually put in quite a few of the technology in place. Right, so this is where we had sensors, we started exploring blockchain, we had a lot of innovative hackathons, and there was a whole digital government blueprint that was actually put out for the citizens to be a living lab, for the entire nation to be a living lab. Okay, We also wanted to put in a whole bunch of sensors to actually start continuous monitoring, tracking, and all for the purposes of making our island a little bit more efficient. Okay. But remember, I told you about the tsunami of the silver generation. Now we have an aging population and now a shortage of talents. How are we going to build this entire smart nation, which is also supposed to be sustainable? So we actually put in a whole skills future framework and a whole transformation roadmap, and that was across the schools, manpower, and also the economic industry. So we have industry transformation maps that actually go all the way from promoting some of the existing enterprises overseas. We have it for manufacturing and built environment. And this is also where I work in this industry, in the building and construction industry in Singapore. So you can see that there's a lot of push to transform construction, real estate, and to actually build up the entire value chain and supply chain logistics as well. We're going to employ artificial intelligence. We're actually going to be putting in more information about training, more frameworks for training, for DFMA, for IDD, integrated digital delivery. And that's to really digitalize the entire process from end to end, from design to construction, to the FMA, as well as facilities management. This is to really start to make the entire cycle a real virtuous loop so that we can realize the benefits of whatever we've designed and to actually just tweak things as we go along. So these are examples of the real estate transformation map that Singapore has actually put out. All things to transform the industry as well as to drive innovation, to get us to think about things. And you can see quite a few of the industry players are our larger SMEs. And there's a huge push to also back up all the data by having security systems in place, right? So climate change is upon us, and environmental services are also something that we want to think about. So how do we actually address some of these innovation challenges, and how do we get the entire industry to adopt new technologies? Now we have, this is an entire ecosystem at a glance. It really takes a village, so we welcome you to come and join us. We actually have about 4,000 startups coming in place and a lot of funds. We also have a lot of deep tech innovation that's happening in the country, as well as the founders SGs, as startup SG networks as well. So once again, we have quite a few continuous flow of information and talent. We have all the accelerators, venture builders coming into Singapore with all the funds coming in. And we also have a lot of investment framework to draw some of the talent to Singapore. So what we hope that you will find is that if you want to come, if you have an idea, we welcome you to come to Singapore to actually use Singapore as a launchpad, as a living lab to expand into Asia, because we have quite a few challenges still around, right? So we know that that there are legal things in place as well. We have also a lot of businesses actually being formed. And in this pandemic, we also see that probably there will be new businesses coming online. So I think this is a fantastic time to see what the industry is going to come up with and what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years and when they're all really mature. So as we digitalize Singapore to actually start to see how things move and simulation of it all, where we see things in 3D, we also still have some lessons that are unaddressed. We have sea level rise, a drowning Sunda shelf that we sit on, and we also have, the government has already put in disaster risk insurance for the entire region, for all the countries to come and work together to mitigate some of these disasters. So even as Singapore is the lightning capital of the world, even as cloud meets infrastructure. We hope that with this last slide, I wish you, anyone who is interested in Singapore, please come and join us in the construction industry and try and innovate for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. You know, in Israel, we look at Singapore as a technological model country in many ways, and we have so much in common. How is the Israeli ecosystem viewed in Singapore, and how are you guys engaging with startups to build a self-sustaining ecosystem on a national level?
Thank you, Aviv. Well, Singapore is a little bit similar to Israel, where we are small, resource-starved, and we see Israel as someone very innovative. And you guys know how to survive, and I think we take our cues from you guys. So perhaps we are like that. We are both Switzerland of the East as well as an Israel of the East. We do work with startups. There is a lot of innovation, but we're slightly different where in Southeast Asia, there is a lot of hierarchy. We respect our authority, we respect our elders. There is a lot of process that's a heritage from the 1980s. So process-wise, we are very diligent. There's Lean Six Sigma, there's a lot of Kaizen going on in Singapore. But perhaps we're missing a little bit more of the out-of-the-box thinking. So we see a whole lot of influx of that kind of creative thinking that we see now. But there are still some gaps in the segment where it's not just the very early stage investments and very large deals, but there are solutions in between to solve. We also see Singapore as a launchpad to ASEAN. So there is an opportunity to come and do low-cost solutions that can be replicated and scaled out to the whole of Southeast Asia. So lots of opportunity and lots of a chance to make a difference. So I look forward to some of you guys coming over and adding to the village. So thank you so much, Aviv, for having me, and thank you, ConTech. I'm very much looking forward to working with you guys in Israel, either digitally or physically. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Hopefully face-to-face soon. This lecture concludes the first day of Construction 4.0 conference by ConTech, brought to you from Startup Nation Central in Tel Aviv, Israel. We hope you enjoyed today and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow as part of the ConTech global community. Bye-bye.